Hello, and welcome to Revamped, a rewatch podcast that revisits my top favorite shows and movies. I'm your host, Brandon Alexander, joined by my co-host,
Courtney Autumn.
Venture with us as we set our sights on the infamous Hellmouth to cover 90s cult classic, Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Follow along from the beginning, spoiler-free, as Courtney views the show for the first time and I revisit the series for new takes and a fresh perspective on its narrative.
Each season, every episode, in order, we will follow Buffy Summers and her friends to examine their character development, the show's underlying themes, along with its major story arcs, all while engaging in conversations, sharing our own authentic thoughts and feelings to what's unfolding before us.
So sharpen your stakes, load your crossbows, and join us as we explore the supernatural world of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Let's get into the episode. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Revamped. Today we're going to be covering Buffy the Vampire Slayer Season 3, Episode 3, Faith, Hope, and Trick. This episode, every time I was writing it was giving me Faith says 5 by 5 in the episode. It was 3 by 3 because that. So I was I'm feeling 3 by 3 today. But I couldn't help every single time I was writing it in the Canva stuff that I was downloading, all of that. I was 3 by 3. I'm 3 by 3. I'm not 5 by 5. I'm gonna be cooler because 3 comes before 5. Crazy. This episode aired October 13th, 1998. The second episode that aired on my sister Jennifer's birthday, just saying. And it was written by David Greenwald and directed by James A. Cottner. In this episode, this epic episode, Buffy finally returns to school and normal life. That is until a new Slayer, Faith, arrives in town, bold, unpredictable, and running from a troubled past that quickly catches up with her in the form of a cloven-hoofed vampire and his bloodthirsty accomplice, both determined to take Faith down. Buffy is forced to confront not only this new threat, but the chaos that Faith's presence stirs in everyone around her. Yum!
Yes.
Faith! So, Flayrette predicts for this episode. I was all what do you think this means? What is this episode about? Blah, blah, blah.
Not at all.
Well, Faith, Hope, and Trick obviously carries a layered meaning.
Mm-hmm.
So now you can finally know, and everyone else, in case you don't know, but obviously you probably do know because you're Buffy fans. Faith is both a person and a concept, what Buffy is lacking and what she must rebuild, along with Faith herself needing to unironically find Faith herself and have courage.
And rebuild.
Right. Hope is what Buffy starts to regain by the end of the episode. Obviously, we have Scott Hope introduced as well, but hope is the idea of healing and moving forward. Giles offering a ritual for Buffy confessing what really happened with Angel as well to extend her hope and his hope that she can talk into all the things and be open up, bitch, Everything else, they gotta have at the end of it. Because if you know, you know. And then finally, we have Trick. A form of trickery, obviously, is deception, performance, illusion, everything that each character is engaging in this episode. Buffy's lie, Giles' lie, Faith hiding her trauma. Everyone's covering up something. And this one, we ain't covering up shit. We taking the blindfold off. We taking the blankets off. And exposure is what's happening this episode. I'm feeling goofy today, which is kind of fun. This should be an interesting recording. Guest stars this episode, obviously bringing it in home, we have Eliza Dushku joining us as Faith Lehane. Do you remember not that long ago whenever I was riding around the car with you when we were urban exploring that I Know What You Did Last Summer Weekend, and I was all Faith Lehane. You're like, What are you talking about? Okay, this was me just being goofy back then. And Faith Lehane obviously is our new Slayer.
Your ass was all it has a nice ring to it, doesn't it?
And you're I don't understand at all. We're just high riding around. And you're what the fuck is going on, man? I'm nothing. Just have faith, Lehane. Have a little faith, It was me foreshadowing this. I do this all the time, actually, to you, to where I say stuff.
I realize that
about
now.
Future stuff, and then when we get there, I've said a bunch of stuff from season 5. So when we finally get there, I hope you remember.
From now on, when you say something and it makes absolutely zero sense, I'm going to start writing it down, and I'm going to be I got you, because this is going to be a part in 7 seasons from now.
I know, right? You're going to have everything documented in your own thing, and you're going to be yes, exactly. Did you know also? Blah, 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 blah. And then I'm going to be
I'll have shit you
about
forgot about. I'd be like that time that you gaslit me in the car talking about Faith Lehane.
Listen, Fun facts to burn about Faith. This bitch was 17 years old when she premiered on this show. This is one of her first really big roles. I think she had some child roles a little bit, but this was her first out there role, obviously as an adult technically as well. And when she began work on the series, I found out that Eliza was still a minor, obviously being 17, and she had to receive emancipation to work for the production's long hours that it entails to be on the show, obviously. And she later recalled with amusement that the judge who handed her emancipation case was an avid fan of the show, and he joked to her, he was like, I'll give you this emancipation order if I can get a signed photo from you. So I thought that was interesting reading.
Interesting.
Obviously, she later went on to lead her own show called True Calling. Did you ever watch that, where she was like, is like Ghost Whisperer? She had to reset the day. She would get a message from a dead person, and they'd be like, "Help me!" And then her day would reset, and she'd have to go back and find the person.
About that. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
I feel like that show only had like a couple or a few seasons. I remember watching it back then, but I've never revisited it. It was pretty okay. I was excited that she got her own show, you know, her lead for it. And like, obviously this is way later on, but she also worked with Joss Whedon on the series Dollhouse, which is one of his big shows. He tends to cast people from the Buffyverse on his little spinoff series. And I wouldn't say spinoff of Buffy, but just like it's in that Whedonverse. Like we say the Buffyverse, there's also the Whedonverse, and that's part of that. And unfortunately, that show was canceled early on. I never got to watch it. I never wanted to watch it because of the fact that it was canceled so early. I'm like, oh, I don't want to get into it in 2 seasons and then be like, well, damn, it feels like it left on a cliffhanger. It's all them people that watch Santa Clarita Diet with Drew Barrymore, and we never get the final season and answers that it left on like a biggest cliffhanger, and they're like, oh, you're canceled. We're never doing anything. Not even a movie. You know, stupid shit like that. But other notable roles, and more so ones that I know Eliza from, she was in the horror movie as the female lead in Wrong Turn, which is one of my favorite horror movies out there. It's very scary. We have the cannibals out in the woods in fucking Virginia. She was in the comedy The New Guy, and she played the female lead in that essentially as well, like the love interest for that geeky ass, scrawny ass motherfucking white guy that was in that movie. If you've ever seen The White Guy, you know, or The White Guy, The New Guy. Basically, if it's a movie about the new guy, you know it's some classic Caucasian ass motherfucker. I sounded like Mr. Trick. And then obviously she played the one up to Kirsten Dunst in the cheerleader flick Bring It On as Missy, which I loved her in that too, because I love when she like licks her finger and smudges off her tattoo, and she does all them backflips when they're like, can you do, you know, double back handspring tuck out, rolled half back spring tuck out, blah 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 twist layout, and she's like, okay. And then she does it, and they're like,
I love it. I love
it. She's hot in the movie too. Like Eliza Dushku in general is sexy, and obviously most people know too, but I'm letting you know this because she's like big in this universe, and I hope that's not a spoiler, but it's pretty. I told you last season that she sticks around a lot longer than Kendra did. You know, I'm not going to foreshadow how long that is because, you know, every Slayer being ended up dead, but or in some way, shape, or form. She doesn't act anymore. She's got her LPC, and she's a counselor for mental health in Boston. She like helps out the city, and she's a big like pro psilocybin person and funding that research and all that, I think, as well, in some way, shape, or form. But that's what she does now, which is very interesting, and we'll get to like revisit that concept whenever we get later on into her story on the show. I'm going to breeze past her for a second and then go into Fab Filippo as Scott Hope, who is our new character and love interest for Buffy. Blech. Only other thing I've ever seen him in is Queer as Folk. He is Justin's love interest in season 3, and you know I'll be loving me some Queer as Folk, and he's in that show, and I thought it was so cute to like see him because I was probably 16 or so when my first boyfriend ever introduced me to that show. And I remember being like, Scott Hope, what the fuck are you doing in here? I was like, I knew he was gay as hell. But we'll talk about him as we go along. And then we have K. Todd Freeman as Mr. Trick, who is an introduction to a new villain for us this episode. And I like him a lot because he's got a lot of flair. I like his commentary across the episode too, and just his approach in the episode. He's very much aware of systematic oppression and feeding off of modern society, knowing that it's ahead of its time for the show. Because, you know, he's arguing basically with Kakistos the whole episode about like, why don't we do this? Why don't we post up, you know, make this town ours type thing? And he's like, I just want the Slayer. Like, he's like, no, if it doesn't have Slayer written on it, I'm not interested. And he's like, all right, cool. Well, and we'll get into this later. But I feel like he makes an interesting impact on the series, and we'll see a little bit more about him later. Let's see. Oh, and then we obviously have Jeremy Roberts as Kakistos. For some reason, I thought Mr. Trick was my last guest star, but Jeremy Roberts played Kakistos, and, you know, this is his one-up episode. He never appears again.
Oh, my God. Well.
My first question for you, though, obviously, getting into opening thoughts and just kind of like jumping in with them, what were your first impressions? And not just the story in the episode, but also Faith and then how Faith interacts with Buffy, obviously, like opposing Kendra, the last Slayer that we saw, just a
Totally
surprise.
different.
And I hate to make this like a long-winded statement, but at the same time, last season, whenever I told you, obviously, or when we noticed that Kendra was going to be coming, and I was like, what episode do you think we get a new Slayer next season? What episode do you think she'll appear in? Like, were you thinking it was going to be like episode 3 or like later? Because obviously it probably had to be in the pool of episodes that I was being like, we're going to get together and do reacts videos for these, episodes.
I don't even think I was taking that into consideration, honestly. I feel like it happened a little sooner than I expected. I feel like they were going to drag it out a little bit longer for some reason and almost make us forget that there could be a Slayer arriving. You know what I mean? Like have so much stuff packed in and happening that you forget that that's even a concept anymore. And then all of a sudden, here comes the other Slayer. So I think initially I thought that it was going to happen more like episode 6 or 7-ish kind of thing, but I'm glad it happened now because now we get to really like see how things start to play out with her there. My initial thoughts on Faith were obviously that she's really hot. And I don't know anyone who's ever seen her and not probably had that same reaction because she's just like a really beautiful girl and woman today. She literally looks the exact same. She has not aged at all. I think her hair is just lighter now and that's it. But I just love her. I've always loved her. Bring It On is like one of my favorite movies from back then, and it's because she's in it. Like fuck everyone else who was in it, she was like always my favorite and just such an energy that I felt like I wanted to embody. Like I looked at her and I was like, I want to be her when I grow up. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't matter.
Did you know there's a comment and Bring It On whenever they go to the other school to see the
other
school, the Clovers, the other squad perform, and it's just Missy takes Kirsten Dunst over there to see them, and so it's just them two. They watch them perform, they're like, holy shit, she has that whole epiphany, like we've stolen everything from them without me knowing about it. And then when they come outside, they were like calling them out, and they're like, y'all here to steal more of our cheers. And that one girl that's like the side up to Gabrielle Union's character is like, let's beat these Buffies down. It's obviously a joke.
Oh my
in that
God,
episode too, Alyssa
so
just because she's
funny.
like, nah, like
that is so funny. I just
but anyways,
that. Yeah, I actually really remember that part. Isn't that girl from like TLC or something the one you're talking about?
I think so. Yeah, something similar
so
to
random. But anyway, so yeah, I was really excited to see her and that she's going to be the Slayer, and I didn't know how to take her at first because like she is so opposing Kendra's energy, and I think we almost got used to like a secondary Giles being there with Buffy being like, no, you need to follow protocol, you need to do it this way, you need to be more disciplined, you need to be on top of your game. And she comes in and she's like, well, I'll just do what the fuck I want when I want and how I want, and I'll still get the job done. So she's like very much the energy that I feel like Buffy's been conditioned to believe is not the right way to be the Slayer. So for her to have this as a like live-in example basically and always be presented to her in this opposing way where Buffy's not used to it, but she also wasn't used to this very strict way that Kendra was. It's just funny to see both the sides, and she's very middle of the road, which goes to show really that Buffy's always very level-headed and she always tries to be fair-minded, and she's not emotionally irrational or impulsive. It really speaks volumes on Buffy's character to have the other two Slayers around to see how different they can do things and still accomplish the same job. But yeah, it made me really excited to see, like, to know that there's this evolving dynamic in place. But I did feel weird when she immediately started calling her B, and I loved it for you because of course that put into perspective because everyone's called you that like our whole lives. But for her to just have known this bitch for 5 minutes and been like, thanks B, I'm like, nah. I feel some type of way when people do that to me and they call me Court. And it's like, I know it's short for Courtney, but you've known me for 5 minutes. Like, it's different if we're friends and we've hung out a few times and you want to court, that's fine. But like,
don't say court unless you are going to a tennis court or you listen to the song Tennis Court by Lorde, or anytime I hear technically the phrase court, I never think Courtney. I think Court Reynolds, son of Garrett Reynolds. And it's Sarah Michelle Gellar's quote from Cruel Intentions where she's talking about that guy
like
she blew on 4th of July.
To court, like you're about to face the judge.
Oh, I never think about that. I don't like to think about the judge and Detective Vaughn,
Of trauma. But anyway, I really love this episode in large part because of Faith's arrival and us being able to really see how this dynamic is going to start off with and what possibilities there might be in the future just with her fitting into the group that we already know and love. So
Yeah.
exciting.
Fitting in her own way. Was really excited to get to this episode just because it's one of my favorites, probably in my top 25 if I really had to make it across the series 25 list or something. I don't know how far or where it would gauge when I really get all the episodes in front of me, but I know it's one of my highest ranked ones just because I love the introduction of Faith. Faith is a really cool character. She's a cool opposition to Buffy, and she doesn't fit the same niche as everybody else because like we were talking about Kendra and Buffy and her, it's like Buffy is in this middle tier where she's a blend of those two. Like she does do what 𝐒𝐻𝐢 says. She does the research. She knows a little bit about the Slayer stuff, probably more so now since meeting Kendra. But beforehand, she wasn't as overdone with the Slayer thing as Kendra is. And then Faith is just super careless, it seems, with her slaying ability. And just you learn, and obviously we'll discuss it as we go along. But like Faith has this, I've got the shit end of the stick my whole life before even becoming the Slayer. She was brought up probably crappy. She looks like she lived like low life kind of vibe life, and not necessarily like she was in the slums,
she's had like a hard
kind of sort of
life.
she's had a harder life. So for the fact that she is a Slayer, you'd think that she would just be fully empowered, but you can tell she's got baggage emotionally that's just trauma induced from life in general.
Yeah, she's used to like self-preserving is like the vibe you get. Like she has her guards up, but you don't really notice that because she seems so authentically herself, So it's like because of that, you just feel like you know her, or like you're very in with her. You're her friend right away. You can tell like the others feel like that with her, and they're just establishing a bond. But then you see this other side in private, like you're saying, that's going on that very much speaks on her having a super hard life. And I feel like you can tell that, and I think you pointed it out to me too when we were watching the episode in real time, that there was a shift in her character as the episode played out and things started evolving and happening, and she was confronted with her own shit. You know what I mean? Then we saw a side of her that we weren't used to seeing up until that point. So it's kind of like you get to see this other version of her that you can almost consider potentially a weakness because she's not dealing with that very well, and I think that's what's so great about Buffy is she doesn't like to carry all that baggage with her, and she knows she can't because she wants to be a good Slayer.
Angel.
Oh damn! Well,
what is it?
You got someone arriving in your fucking dreams every night. What are you supposed to do?
She's still got Angel. She got Dream Angel every 2 seconds. Let's see. What else did I want to say? I mean, we're talking about Faith, so I can kind of delve into her a little bit more versus my thoughts on the overall episode with everything else that we deal with. I did want to mention that this, as I told you, was my sister Tiffany's favorite character in the show. When we were kids, we always were. I was Buffy, she was Faith, and then we would play like we were Slayers and shit. Obviously, like my mini crossbow that I made, and I was always whittling stakes at like I was really doing something. It was the whole thing. But you've already kind of prefaced for everybody that she always called me B, and she's actually the person who sparked my nickname. Obviously, it came from the show, but she started calling me B because we were playing Buffy together, and it just kind of unfolded into becoming my actual nickname to where like Marsha called me that. And then like everybody else, whenever, Caitlin McLeod, everybody else that I've met in my work environments, after they were like meeting me the first time, I was like, oh yeah, most people call me B. And I'm like, it's always got to have the exclamation point on the end of it. Like I can't be just B, just an empty B chilling around. It's like B is here,
It's weird too, because I was thinking about it, and I don't know if I've ever addressed you personally that way. Like maybe I'm one of the few people.
Said it a couple times.
Yeah, but I feel like especially when we were living together with Marsha or anything, if Marsha and I were talking about you, that's what I would always say. I would always say B. Yeah, and that's just weird how I would never actually do that to your face. But if it's like, oh hey, yeah, B needs something from the grocery store, or something like that, like I would never be. I would never go into your room and be like, hey B.
Well, you never call me really Brandon either.
I just
like
call you mate.
How you, is that to say it's like that sickness where you call Meredith mine all the time. It's like she's mine and I'm the other end mate. So like that, or we called each other other names. Like we'd come home, we'd be like, hello, matey, Katie, and you'd be like, hello, Russell Brandon. Because we were obsessed for some reason in 2011 with being Katy Perry.
I just can't imagine calling you anything else now. Because you're forever mate.
Shit's all over the place. But people are learning about us this episode, which is kind of funny to spark this all. But in that, like I was saying about my sister, I did want to dedicate specifically this episode to her and her memory, because as people might have remembered in our opening introduction episode, I talked about how she had passed away, but she was my Buffy everything. Like, I shared most of my Buffy life and childhood with her and our conjoined passion. You know, she went with me to that watch party that we did with Nicholas Brendan back in the day and all that. So she's a very important Buffy person. So I wanted to say that I wish that she was here to discuss this with us, because she would have been a fun guest had she had not been a part of the podcast in general. But this one would have been one I would have been like, Tiffany, you're coming on for this episode to do it with us. So
sure.
I'm gonna say she's here in spirit, because
100%.
this is all we got. But yeah, getting back into the episode though, specifically, I think it's interesting that last episode to this one, we can see the gang is pretty much happy and back together again. But this episode, as I mentioned, last episode sort of seals up the Buffy's trauma over Angel and becoming at the end of season 2 and all that as well. So I thought that was interesting how they like create this stretched out arc to deal with each thing. Buffy's solo journey in episode 1, how she comes back and meets her friends and family in season 2, and then how she continues forward really after that, especially maybe dealing with what's internally happening versus all the external work that needed to happen, because it went from internal to external to internal again. But this was dealing with more of the actual problem that she had lingering with the admittance of what happened and her feelings over everything, and also fully sharing that part, at least with the two most important people that I feel like it mattered. It mattered to Giles most, and it matters to Willow the most, because Willow's the one that finally gets the clarity around what she did and how that had to turn out and why the trauma was so hard. And they kind of can understand moving forward why maybe Buffy left the way she did, because of everything that's brought to light. I love the fact that Faith mirrors that all this episode, and because of Faith's situation, that puts things in perspective for Buffy by the end to basically see, because her final comment is like, she put it behind her, she dealt with it, and then she's like, fuck, I need to do the same. And then that's when she decides to say it. And I'm like totally jumping ahead, but still I love it. It's such an important part of this episode. Back to Faith a little bit really quick, obviously, because she's our big theme for this episode in person, to like, I don't know, a very pivotal role and focus on the episode. I feel like she explodes onto the scene, and not just like jokingly as the vampire that she slays when we first met her. What an entrance, you know what I mean? We didn't meet Kendra that way at all. We thought Kendra was somebody else. Faith come out guns a-blazing, but we automatically noticed that she's confident, wild, and very energetic. Giles says later she's got zest and all of that, and it's very immediate. And obviously we see that contrasts Buffy, as we've already said. I feel like Faith is a very anti-Kendra kind of person as well, as we've already said. She's not rigid in her formality when it comes to the watcher obedience dynamic. I feel like she's going to bring more chaos, passion, and attitude versus the way that Kendra was on the show. So it's going to be fun to watch her interact with everybody as more unfolds, especially where we sit with her now. And we don't know how the story turns out. I mean, you don't know how it turns out with her. So it's going to be very interesting to see you watch and witness everything that's about to unfold. For anybody that doesn't know, and then also to let you know, 5x5 is military radio slang that means loud and clear. It's used to describe a strong and clear signal, 5 on signal strength and 5 on clarity. In plain terms, obviously, this means like everything's good, all systems go, I'm solid, I hear you perfectly. That was what they would use as their lingo. And they told Faith that she was going to be saying that, or Eliza, that was going to be her catchphrase in a way, because Faith doesn't really talk about her issues most of the time. She's just very like, no matter what, her version of it is like, if you said, you okay? She would be like, yeah, I'm 5x5. It means like, I'm good, don't ask more. Or do you understand? Yeah, I'm 5x5. Like, yeah, I got it, whatever. Like, that's her total demeanor, and that's what that means. So just in case anybody and yourself can now know and have full circle of being like, what the fuck is she talking about when she said, because this is her catchphrase, so she says it quite often along with Bean. And then I wrote in my notes too, and I've already kind of slightly mentioned it, that I realized more this time around that her story mirrors Buffy and where she's at on her journey, down to the plot line and instances that Faith has went through. Although Faith's story has been more slum and full of lower vibes, Buffy hadn't experienced that before she was called to be the Slayer. She had like a regular life, and I would say, other than her parents arguing and towards the end, a pretty healthy life, and Faith did not have that at all. So it's very interesting to see how that unfolds and what's going to be like. I don't know, we're going to be able to connect back so much. I'm just saying that again to really beat it in. But I don't know, the episode in general is just full of new characters. It's fun and exciting because we get a whole lot going on in it. For it to be just episode 3, it's just really cool. So I feel like that's all I can say about it, other than what I say as we go along. I love it. I love this episode. Faith, Hope, and Trick all day and tomorrow. You ready to jump into the episode?
Yes.
Press play, Faith, Hope, and Trick. We open on a fresh day at Sunnydale High as Brian Jonestown Massacre's Going to Hell plays. Love this song and band. We're going to see them in September next month, aka like a couple of weeks from now, that from this episode airing in Asheville. Me, Anna, and her kids are all going up there to see them. And I love Brian Jonestown. I remember sitting in the garage one day whenever she was like, hey, this, because she was playing something, like the vibes were just immaculate for the hangout session. Little beer shots were excluded this night. I was like, who is singing this? I think it was the song Wisdom by then. I really liked the vibe. And she's like, oh, this is Brian Jonestown Massacre. And I was like, oh, I really like their vibe. She's like, okay. So she told Siri to play Nothing But Them. So the songs were coming on, and eventually this song came on. And as soon as I heard the opening intro to the song, I was like, this song was on Buffy. Like, and I was like, this is so cool. I just had this whole thing. It was like a connected to me. I felt like it was, you know, it really rung home, especially this being my episode. And I was like, but what episode was that on? I know it's season 3. And then when I looked at it, it was this episode. I'm like, fuck yeah. I was like, that's so cool. So, you know, they were of the times. Obviously, that song came out around this year. So if y'all haven't listened to it, go listen to Going to Hell by Brian Jonestown Massacre. Also, it's funny because the song is called Going to Hell and Where's Angel right now, you know? Yes. So it's kind of interesting how they always do this. Oz and Willow stand on the front steps of the school, and she's giddy. They're seniors now, which means they can finally leave campus for lunch without it being considered cutting. Still, we have to physically drag Willow off campus as she wants to savor the moment because she's like trying to stall on the thing. She's like, one that can't just be leapt into. We've got to sit here and cherish this. And Cordy and Xander come up behind him, and him and Oz scoop her up by arms and carry her and escort her across the street. I love it how she starts freaking the fuck out. She's like,
oh, no, I can't.
You can. See, you are.
Oh, but no, what if they change the rule without telling? What if they're lying in wait to arrest me and throw me in detention and mar my unblemished record?
Great.
Willow, so goofy, and I don't understand, like, just go across the street, but she feels like she's gonna get in trouble. You can tell she's always been this good girl. Like, to me, it was kind of reminding me of maybe in Teacher's Pet, whenever she's like trying to do the stuff behind Xander's, like feel and touch and try to give Buffy the answer, and all Dr. Gregory's like, would Miss Rosenberg like to help you out with any more answers, Miss Summers? And Willow's just like looks back to the front of the class like, I wasn't doing nothing type shit. This reminds me of that kind of Willow, because we haven't seen that version of Willow in a while. And it just shows her quirkiness. But obviously they get her across the street, and she's like very confident as they start to, you know, hey, I'm walking here. They come across Buffy, who is laying out a picnic across the school little plot that's over there. And I was like, I want a picnic from Buffy, because she over here like bringing out all grapes and all this other shit. Right? I'm like, seriously, Earth Girl vibes. I'm gonna need her whole charcuterie board that she brought out here. Obviously, we realize that she can't attend school still, so this is a big theme for this episode, or like the beginning parts of it. And the group wonders if they should tone down the PDA because they're all coupled up. I love that whole dialogue between them, because Cordy's talking about how...
Oh, you mean because of how the only guy that ever liked her turned into a vicious killer and had to be put down like a dog?
Can she cram complex issues into a nutshell or what? All right, prepare to uncouple. Uncouple.
And Oz is like, yeah, we should probably uncouple. So they all do as such, and they make their way over to Buffy, finally banned from campus, but not from their hearts, who has way too much time on her hands and is definitely not channeling Martha Stewart with this picnic. She tells them how being banned might soon change, as she enjoys having another meeting with Snide Man tomorrow. Willow points out Scott Hope nearby, a boy who apparently liked Buffy last year, and Willow thinks Buffy's finally ready to talk to him. I'm like, okay, Willow thinks. Like, Willow, you weren't thinking nothing last episode when it came to Buffy, so why are you thinking about this all of a sudden? Also, where the fuck does little white boy come from?
I know.
I don't understand. But she also makes that comment in the statement. She's like, or at least do that thing with your mouth that boy is like. And Buffy just stares at her in horror, and Willow's like...
Oh, I didn't mean that bad thing with your mouth. I meant that little half smile thing.
I love it. She looks at Oz, and she's like...
Hey, you're supposed to stop me when I do that.
And he's like...
I like when you do that.
He just lets her run out. Scott passes by them and says a polite hello, and it's not exactly a grand gesture to Willow, but she counts it as a win just because, you know, they've now interacted in some way, shape, or form. I was like, what is all this pushing of Scott Hope? I'm gonna need it. It's been 5 seconds with seeing him on the screen. I already don't like him. Personal opinion. Buffy tells them that she's not trying to get involved with anyone. She just wants her normal life back.
All right, yes, date and shop and hang out and go to school and save the world from unspeakable demons. You know, I want to do girly stuff.
I'm like, that is not girly things, but also slay. That night, a limo pulls through a burger drive-thru. Inside, a sharply dressed black man in a suit orders a drink. We'll come to know him as Mr. Trick. He talks to someone shadowed beside him about how Sunnydale, despite its whiteness, is perfect for darkness and opportunity. His companion says that they're here for one thing. A sliver of light reveals his cloven hand.
Kill the Slayer, yeah. Still, big picture,
Mr. Trick's like, yeah, I got this. I understand. I promise I'm on board because I'm going to hear this from you 75,000 more times this episode.
He's like, I know. It's why we're here.
Duh, I remember. But also, let's, live here forever. Trick grabs his drink from the dude at the window, and the figure says what he's going to do to the Slayer.
The Slayer. I'm going to rip her spine from her body, and I'm going to eat her heart and suck the marrow from her bones.
Which makes Trick hungry. He vamps out and yanks the drive-thru employee into the car as they speed off. Chaotic already. I love that part. He's just like, now I'm hungry. I didn't know he was a vampire at first. I just figured he was like some man working for this like obviously demon in the thing.
Yeah.
And I remember when the hand like came off his leg. I mean, why was he holding his leg in the car, by the way, too?
I don't know.
Are y'all a couple? What's going on?
Oh.
Like this pig into some fetish shit, or this guy is into some pig fetish shit, or some I was going to try to say what a vampire that looks like a pig, because he's channeling, like I said, the bat vibes like Master had, but like the pig version because of the cloven hooves. But it's also another little thing to throw in our face. Vampires on the show, when they've aged, past 600 or gotten to be thousands of years old, they start to take on more primordial looks again. So we know he's aged the fuck out. Like he's this ancient
he's
vampire.
Like 1,000 years old.
Giles knows who he is. But I also want to say too, before going along, that Mr. Trick is obviously a black vampire on the show, and he's one of the very few persons of color and characters of color that we've seen in Sunnydale on the show. Obviously we had Kendra on the show, the only like person of color that we've really seen on the show, it being a major role or a villain or anything like that. So it's nice that we see that. And I like how immediately in his commentary in the car, he calls attention to diversity. And it's almost like the show is winking at itself, acknowledging that Sunnydale is a very white show, or like Buffy is a very white person oriented show, but they're not meaning it to necessarily be. But it's very interesting. I don't know. There's like a whole bunch of controversy whenever I've listened to other podcasts of them being like, there's never an Asian person on the show as like a character unless it's like a vampire that has no actual name. It's just getting dusted in the corner.
It was the 90s, so I feel like everything in entertainment was still really whitewashed, unfortunately.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's like the beautiful thing about where we are today, is that we do get all these splashes of diversity and color. And in my opinion, it makes the world a way fucking better place. But I think when you're conditioned to it, because in the 90s, I wouldn't have noticed that. You know what I mean? But I am a white person, so I have white privilege, and I'm conditioned that way. And I think we all were, because like I said, it was the 90s. Media wasn't as like racially welcoming to everyone at the time.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of like I said,
at least
where we were getting propped up, and
yeah. And I mean, we did have obviously people of color on TV, but they usually were segmented to their own like Family Matters, like their own dynamic of a show or something like that, versus the meld of everybody coming together and the diversity being there, which is what my overall statement was about. Like, it calls attention to diversity, that the show is winking at itself, because I feel like it could be seen as Joss Whedon's attempt to be meta with his commentary that Mr. Trick gives, and like the racial representation in Buffy.
Yeah.
And then obviously as a follow-up just to Mr. Trick, because that was what my statement was about, he's very stylish and sharp. He's wearing these like clean suits that are like pops of color. He's and they stand out really great against his skin in general. It's a fun character. That's an addition to the show.
I liked him too. He's fun. I liked him.
You get to see a little bit more of him, obviously, because he's still there. He left Kakista, so we'll see what happens with him. Getting back into the episode fully, they have left the burger joint with the employee and sped off with his ass, him hanging out. That's such a funny thing. And as soon as that, we cut to black and we cue the Buffy theme. At the Bronze, we open back up in a dream sequence where Buffy and Angel dance, and the gang look on at the two. Buffy's Claudia ring slipping off her finger as Angel stoops down to retrieve it. The fucking gang over there too, they just look all mooted and unimpressed. They're like, why are we here in Buffy's dream watching her dance with this motherfucker? Buffy has that quick flashback in her mind to her stabbing him at the mansion and becoming part 2 and telling him, she's like, I had to. And he grips that ring tight in his hand and draws fucking blood. He's like, fuck this Claudia ring. And he's like, I loved you. As his white shirt, obviously they had to put Angel for like one of the few times in a white shirt so that blood would really come through. And that's what happens. It starts to fucking drip from his hand, but then also come from the hole that she put in his chest. And she's like, oh God, Angel. And he's like, fuck you, while she's wigging out. And he's like, go to hell. I did. And then obviously it pans up to his face too. And they did some cool makeup here where they like made his face look like a decayed zombie. And I was like, the one time David Boreanaz doesn't look hot, but I'll still do it with him. Buffy then awakens in her bed, opening up her nightstand drawer to pull out the ring on a necklace and stare at it before Joyce comes in to collect her to head to the school for their meeting with the Beast, aka Principal Snipe. At the school, we flash over there, and he's telling her the terms of her re-entry to Sunnydale High, which include recommendations from teachers, not English librarians, and interviews with the school psychologist to make sure her violent tendencies are under control. Joyce, not a fan of his attitude and negative vibes that be flowing up in this room, voices concern, but Snyder cuts her off to state that he is aware that he has been required to provide education to juveniles that should be in jail, giving Buffy a passive, snarky welcome back. I feel like I should always say passive whenever we say passive-aggressive on the show from now on.
That's amazing.
We got to put her with the shovel in her face and put like the little girly thing where the like nails are showing. They're like with the eyes closed and the hands up. And we got to put it's the pats of aggressive for me. Something. Hey Pat. Okay, I'm done. I wish everybody could see me on the camera because that was cute. Screenshots. The stuff that Courtney gets to see that you don't seize because I can't talk. All right, great. Either way, let's see, where was I? Passive aggressive. Buffy taunts him with the fact that the school board has really just overruled him and his whole job meaning has been called into question. And Joyce is like, well, I think what my daughter's trying to say that she can't say because I'm gonna say it for her is nah 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 nah, because that's totally what it was given. She's like, I gotta be a dick, but like I can't because he just let me back in the school. He's gonna be like, you're expelled again. They leave as Snyder gets a phone call. Beep, the mayor on line 1. I was all talking over the scene too. I was like, did you hear that? And you're like, no, because you were talking. And I'm like, oh, he said the mayor's calling. You're like, oh yes, more of the mayor. I was like, yes, we got to hear every statement about the mayor.
It's like, I get it, the mayor.
Well, they making it known for us. I just had to make sure we heard that one little thing. Even though I was talking. Now fully reinstated, Buffy walks into the library with Willow, who is happy that she is back. Buffy wondering what Giles wanted and if he seemed mad, because that's what they're there for. Willow giving us the fact that when he is mad, she's noticed that he's too English to say anything about it, and he makes that weird cluck cluck sound with his tongue. Giles popping up behind Willow. Willow's like, been there long? She's like, I was just talking shit about you, and I can't be having all that. He needs Buffy's help with a 𝐶𝐻𝐿A, telling her that they need to make sure that a 𝐶𝐻𝐿A remains dormant, and he's working on a binding spell because we see the sage and all the other fucking herbs out on the counter. Those words perk up Willow, who wants to help, but Giles isn't too keen on that as this is specific and difficult to perform, needing info from Buffy on her battle with defeating Angel and a 𝐶𝐻𝐿A. His specifics including if the vortex was already open, she declares barely, and Angel, he wonders.
Big fight. Angel got the pointy end of the sword. 𝐶𝐻𝐿A sucked him into hell instead of the world. That's about it.
Him declaring that all should be very helpful, and Buffy realizes that she's got to head out to go take a makeup exam. She goes, and Willow makes those comments about all the spell ingredients that are laying out, and it clues Giles into realizing that she's been up to magical working since her knowledge has expanded. Curious about this, she tells him about how the cure for Angel was a bust, but she's just been doing small stuff since then, practicing magic, and she's like, floating a feather, a fucking fire out of ice. She's like, which next time I won't do on the bed. I'm like, oh hell, she's doing stuff. I love his comment. She's like, what have you been conjuring? And I'm like, oh shit, she conjuring shit? No, she's just floating shit. She's trying to act like Harry Potter. Wingardium Leviosa.
You're saying it wrong. It's Leviosa, not Leviosa.
And she gets fearful though, and she's like, are you mad at me? And he's like,
No, of course not. If I were, I would be making a strange clucking sound with my tongue.
Letting her know, obviously, that he totally heard her previous comments about him passive aggressively. I feel like I'm never going to look at the word passive again the same way when we're doing Buffy stuff.
I've fucked it up for everybody.
I love it, though. But everybody listening on forward will know what passive aggressive means.
That's true.
Later that evening at the Bronze, Darling Violetta is performing their song Cure to a dance floor of people, including Cordy and Xander, as Buffy brings over drinks, interrupting Willow and Oz's smoochy session. The bitch is just making out the damn Bronze. I'm like, get it, Willow? It's a long way away from like last season when she's like, do you want to make out in the car when they were trying to steal the rocket launcher? And he's like, I'm not going to kiss you. So now he's like, I'm all over you. All happy also because life feels back in the normal swing of things. Buffy has been missing this feeling. Scott comes up to them, Willow wondering what he's doing there, him announcing how Willow told him if he would come at a certain time that he could run into Buffy. Buffy looks over at her too and starts eyeing her, and then Willow's like nervously drinking her drink. She's like, I didn't say that. Like, I don't know. She's looking down like, don't look at me. Don't make eye contact. Don't make eye contact. She's like Buffy last episode with Pat. Not looking, not looking. And Scott informs them that he is a bad liar. He's like, it's not good for the skin. I'm like, well, you do have really pretty skin, so I'll give you that. He asks Buffy to dance, but she's not really ready and can't find the words, getting nervous herself as he takes the pressure off of her, and he's like, well, I'm going to go hang over here by the dance floor, and if you change your mind, you can mosey on over, and maybe then we can dance, we can have the vibes, whatever. And he goes and does that. Willow wondering why she's not into Scott, and Buffy stating she's again just not ready. It's really interesting that Willow was being super pushy with the Scott thing. She's like, Buffy, he's like your new boyfriend. I've already made this a match made in heaven. Like, I am eHarmony. I'm E-Willow. She's like, I'm E-letter Willow.
Like, I learned how to code from Malcolm. I created my own dating site. It's called eWillow. I start here. But it pissed me off kind of that she was doing this, because I felt like it was self-induced, or like selfishly induced, because she's like, okay, so instead of having to like decouple around Buffy to save her uncomfortability, let's just make her a couple with someone. And it's like she just found the first person that like crossed her path that she remembered, probably showed like the slightest interest in Buffy, and she's like, they're getting married.
Yep. So annoying.
And then she just like pushes it, and I'm like, come on, dude.
I feel like if she had had all this information that she gets at the end of the episode, even though she knows like Buffy's killed Angel essentially at this point, if she had had the rest of that like commentary, totally she would have probably not been pushing this book. She would have been like, oh shit, like, yeah, you got some trauma. But also I feel like she also would, because Willow's seemingly starting to be that kind of person that just doesn't want uncomfortability in the group at all. And she just wants to like,
she just want to deal with
do anything to make it go away, essentially.
Agreed.
So but Cordy and Xander come up, and Cordy comments on a couple on the dance floor who are getting down, and the guys' moves are dated, giving the vibes of Casey and the Sunshine Band. Buffy taking notice and then watching the girl point that they should go outside, commenting how that guy doesn't look like he thrives on sunshine. Callback, interestingly enough, to Welcome to the Hellmouth, because the dated clothes honing style, that's how she got the fact that Willow was with a vampire, because she's like, that guy's outfit is totally dated. This guy, he had them purple bell-bottomy looking pants on, and he's out on the fucking dance floor doing shit like this, like the little wave with his arms and stuff, and like and thumping his pelvis and doing like the fucking 70s like finger point, like you know what I'm talking about, like disco vibes. I was like, no. And Faith is over here like acting like she's into it, because obviously we're gonna find out in a second that's Faith. She gets up though to go follow them and bumps into Scott, who thinks that she was moseying over, but nah, she was headed out. She flags the gang to come along and head out there, which kind of sucks for Scott, because he's like numerous times this episode thinking Buffy's trying to approach him, and then or trying to approach her. She's always like, I gotta go, I've got to be somewhere else, or she just seems like she's not interested at all. But he keeps on trying. Obviously, they get outside, and Buffy wonders where they went. Cordy thinking that they are just probably making out somewhere, hearing a struggle nearby. And I love Willow's comment.
That's not what making out sounds like. Unless I'm doing it wrong.
Xander hands Buffy a steak, which is the largest steak I've ever seen in this show. I don't know if you remember it, but it's like a whole fucking chair leg or some shit. And I was like, usually she's carrying a smaller or a really thin sized steak. This is definitely not the steak from season 1 and 2. They move toward the noises, and we see the girl that was in the bronze with the guy dancing is getting backed up against the wall, and the man is now vamped out, and he's about to drink her blood. He's about to tear her ass up, and he's telling her,
stop struggling, this won't hurt.
That girl grabs him by the throat, punches him in the face, hops on the crate next to him, and hops up in the air, delivers a kick to him, knocking him down to the ground as Buffy and her friends run up, and she walks towards them, voicing her introduction.
It's okay, I got it. You're Buffy, right? I'm Faith.
Oh my God, I love you already because you're badass. When she says I'm Faith, this motherfucker has her pinned from the back. He's grabbing her arms and holding her, and she like backs her head into his and does a fucking headbutt to his face with the back of her head. I'm like, yes, but her hair flings out of her face, and it's just the way they did this, they nailed it. Like the imaging, the quote, the fucking slay that she is, like as the Slayer, like fucking cool. I couldn't think of a better introduction for her. Like I said, last season we got Kendra coming in differently, and this is like the way to do it when you're a fucking Slayer. I'm just saying.
I agree.
But Buffy and the gang look stunned as she begins to take on the vamp again. Oz voicing he's going out on a limb to think that there's a new Slayer in town. Faith grabbing Buffy's steak from her to borrow it, stakes the vampire as we get the 2K per Faith slay, and handing B back her steak, thanking her, heading back inside the bronze, Buffy looking back in shock. I basically feel like I've already gassed up this whole fucking scene. What are your thoughts just on like how she came in and the fact that she's here?
I absolutely just loved it. I think that as you get to see her character kind of unfold in this episode, it's very on brand for her seemingly to enter this way and be introduced to us this way. And I feel like it does set the tone for what we get to see of her throughout the episode. And I'm sure like throughout her however long she lasts on the series. You know, I feel like she's going to be a very complex character with like lots of different sides and layers and stuff like that. So she's going to bring the onion element back that Drusilla had.
And Cordelia.
And Cordelia. But yeah, I think that it was fun and it was so different from Kendra. And I feel like it just speaks to their character so much, you know, and that's what I love about this show is all the undertonality of stuff is like everything's fed to you in a metaphor or in an undertone or in a backdrop or in something going on kind of less obvious visually, you know. So as you start to learn to pay attention to these type of things as a viewer, it becomes even more interesting because that's kind of why I feel like she's going to be super complex, but also fun, you know, because obviously that's what we get from this introduction. So it just makes her like this lively presence. And we need that right now, I think, coming from the kind of more negative vibes that we're leaving, especially with the crew. But she does, she adds a good component to where we're at as far as like the mood and the structure of what we're dealing with at the moment. So it was fun.
Yeah, like how her last statement to her is the first time she calls Buffy B. She's just like, I mean, she says you're a Buffy, right? But then like when she goes leave, she's like, thanks B, couldn't have done it without you, and like hands her back her steak, but then also just leaves all of them staying out there and goes back in. She's like, you guys can come to me now. Yeah, I want to talk more, we can go inside, because
I know, yeah, well now
you know,
she's like, I'm the mystery, you know, like
I don't know, it was so cool how she did that. And obviously she probably didn't time that exactly that way, but she knew Buffy was there, and we'll get into a whole conversation about that later. But it's just very interesting how it seems planned but yet unplanned, but very chalant but nonchalant. It's very, Faith is interesting. We go back inside the Bronze, where we find Faith is now sitting with the gang and telling them stories of her past battles against vampires, this one in specific of her being nude as it occurred, a story Xander of course thinks that they should film and show every Christmas. Cordelia looking very displeased at this. Faith scarfs down a muffin, voicing she could eat a horse, and also questioning Buffy.
Isn't it crazy how slaying just always makes you hungry and horny?
Everyone turning to look at Buffy.
Well, sometimes I crave a non-fat yogurt afterwards.
I love Willow's face because out of everybody in the group, Willow's face is the best. She like looks at Buffy with a smirk. She's like, really? Like, what? Girl. She's like, what do you do when you get home? Like, after slaying? No wonder you and Angel was always making out. Cordy voices to everyone that she gets it, not the horny thing, yuck, but the two-slayer thing, giving us the reminder of Buffy's death activating Kendra, and then Kendra's death activating Faith's calling. Willow wondering why she was called to Sunnydale, though. Faith offering her watcher went off to some retreat in England, and she decided to skip out and wanted to come meet the infamous Buff and compare notes. So now she's done called her B and Buff. She can't just put the Y on that.
She refuses.
Either way, she asked B in this statement if she really used a rocket launcher one time. I love this because apparently Faith has heard stories of Buffy, like specifically the rocket launcher that got out there some way, shape, or form. I don't know if that came from the Watchers Council, and like the council has told Faith that like, hey, you're not just the only Slayer. There was actually a Slayer before you, and there was another one that caused it, because now it's gotten out into the network with Mr. 𝑒𝑧 and the Watchers Council that Buffy died but came back. Very interesting how it has this component, and it sucks though because Xander doesn't want to give Buffy the chance to talk about her life and her experiences as the Slayer, because he cuts her off to bring up Faith's story that she was mentioned before about the alligators, and he's like, you know, was this also naked? Like, gross, nasty. And obviously Cordy has to snark at him and be like, find a new fucking theme. But Faith does go on mentioning the same story from earlier about the big daddy vampire in Missouri that used to keep alligators as pets, and she tells that whole story talking about wrestling a 12-foot one, and that's when Xander's like, were you naked? And Cordelia's like, fuck off. But she ends that story with how she never had more trouble than that vamp. And I don't know if you picked up on it, but that's Kakistos she's talking about. The fact that she makes the comment, I've never had more trouble than that vampire. This is still that vampire that's giving her troubles and that she's afraid of. So if you didn't catch it, you now know. And then she asked Buffy what her toughest kill was. We flash again in Buffy's mind, and it's like we've done seen it 8,000 times, but we get this fucking image of her stabbing Angel again at the end of Becoming Part 2. This is just trauma-inducing. And Buffy's like, okay, well, I can't talk about that, but decides to mention the 3. And I remember I looked at you in the episode, I was like, do you remember the 3? And you were like, and I was like, well, we can't talk about it because we're trying to watch the episode, but I'll tell you later. So the 3 are the vampires that were sent by the Master for Buffy and Angel's self-entitled episode, where they were spooking her in the alley, and she's like, I don't want to fight all three of you unless I have to. And then one of them beats Angel in the fucking stomach with the damn thing, and they have to go to her house and mend his bandage up. And that's where he meets Joyce, and he has his shirt off in the kitchen, and all that stuff. But we remember Angel. You remember?
Yes.
Angel. But those were the three vampires. And remember, we were talking about whenever Darla gets the pleasure of staking them one by one from behind, they're wearing like the suits of armor.
Yes.
And we were talking about the fucking trampoline with the dust on it, like to create the effect of the yeah. I just figured I'd call that back because it was a fun story for the three.
Gotcha.
But I also love that without Buffy having Angel being her toughest kill, that's what she would chalk up to be like her first. If you asked her what was one of her tougher battles, she's gonna say these motherfuckers. Like girl, the judge was a problem. You had to all get a rocket launcher. I wouldn't say it was a tough kill, but it was like a tough component. But the fact that he was what he was, there's also been like other people, you know what I mean? I don't know, but that's what she chalks it up to. Going on a tangent about the fucking three for 3 minutes. She doesn't get to go into that though, because Oz interrupts to ask about Faith's stance on werewolves, because he is one. Faith agreeing as long as he doesn't go scratching at her or humping her leg, then they're 5 by 5. But also how the vamps better watch the fuck out, because her and Buffy are going to have fun being watcherless together and fancy free. Buffy confused because Giles didn't go to the retreat that Faith has mentioned. Cutscene transition magic to the next day, where Giles is voicing to Buffy, Faith, Willow, and Xander in the library. He knows about the retreat, and every year there's one, and he's giving praise on its serenity and all the things that goes on during it, noting that it's an honor to be invited.
So I'm told.
Poor Giles. He's like, I didn't get invited. Faith thinks that it would be too boring for Giles to do as such. And Buffy has to clarify. She's like, do I need to reintroduce you to again? And Faith's like, well, I've seen him. If I knew they come that young and cute, then I would have requested a transfer. Yes, agreed. Absolutely. Because Daddy Giles vibes.
Raise your hand if ew.
It flashes over to Willow and Xander. Xander like kind of starts to raise his hand, but then scratches his cheek instead of raising it all the way, because he's like me, like this is gross. Giles tells them that it seems that Faith's arrival was a bit fortuitous, as 2 people have gone missing.
Aha! Sorry, I just meant aha!
Willow telling Faith that she'll never be bored here, as Sunnydale is the home of the big brewing evil. Buffy saying that they can hit patrol later that evening after dinner with Mom, to which she's also invited because Willow eggs that on. She's like, no, you need to invite Faith over for dinner, She's your new sister. Come on, bring her home. And she obviously invites her, and Faith's down. Willow reminding Buffy of her next makeup exam, aka the one that she can go to, and they can tend to hanging out with Faith while she goes and does sex. She's like, I actually need your help. And Willow's like, oh, nope, I don't know how to help you anymore. I'm going to go home and they all want to know about Faith. It's exciting new energy, but also it kind of puts Buffy on the back burner.
Yeah.
The 3 leave, and Giles voices to Buffy how Faith seems to have a lot of zest. Anyways, back to 𝐶. He asks again more questions on it, and Buffy's like, I don't have time to get into this.
Look, I've got makeup tests to pass, missing people in Sunset Ridge, and a zesty new Slayer to feed. Next time I kill Angel, I'll video it.
Then she leaves the library. I'm like, fuck. He's like asking about this question, and he just keeps bringing it up out of nowhere too. Like they're not even talking about this at all. He's like, oh yeah, about this spell again, I've got this going on. And she's like, motherfucker, I don't want to talk about this, I already told you. Once again, she's like, Angel, 𝐶, sword right through him, like all the things. So funny. Out in the halls, Willow and Xander give Faith a school tour, showing her all the Hellmouth spots that the activity of the Hellmouth has occurred, like snakes in the cafeteria and the muddy grave Willow was almost sucked into, and I Only Have Eyes for You, the spot where Angel tried to kill her in Innocence, and the lounge where Spike and his gang nearly massacred them during PTA night in School Hard. Faith begins to ask what's up with B, saying that she seems tight-wound and needing to find the fun a little like them, but her ADHD kicks in and she wants to go grab some water instead of getting the answer that Willow's about to cue her in with. It's like, fuck. She all asks a question, then she's like, actually, oh, no, never mind. 2 seconds. Girl, the attention span. Come on. Cordy comes up to Xander gawking about Faith, because obviously he's like talking about her with Willow. He's like, oh, she's got something, doesn't she? Cordelia's like, she's got nothing for you, thank you. But then she also makes that comment. She's like, maybe I should dress up as a Slayer and put a stake to your throat. And he's like, oh, please don't let that be like, I don't remember what he jokes about, but he says something like, he's like, I love this idea. He's like, I'm pleased with this decision. Can we leave school early and go do this? It's like thing with Slayer, but once again, it's like the second time this episode he's making comments or in the series about other girls that are not Cordelia. And if I was Cordelia, I'd come up and hit him with the back of my heaviest book in the back of his head. You just gotta start beating him up at this point, not physically enough to hurt him or head concussions, but like start dishing out some bullshit on his ass too, or start flirting with other men in front of him. If he's gonna do it,
I would
you can
do
it.
The same thing right now.
That's what I'm saying. I'd be acting passive aggressive as I could. They're watching Faith, who bumps into Scott when she goes to leave the water fountain, and they exchange a cutesy moment from afar, and she recognizes him from the bronze. Buffy coming up to the gang, and Willow suggesting if she's done with Scott, maybe her and Faith can hit it off. Buffy voicing she hasn't said no fully, but grabs Faith from him to head out. It's so fucked up, too. Like, the whole instance, obviously we get the quote from Willow where she's like, you really do need to find the fun, Buffy. She's like accidentally calling her this damn name, but she's also talking about like, well, maybe if you're done with him, like they seem to be coupling up pretty good, like all this other stuff. I'm like, oh my god. But also kind of flirts the idea of Buffy wanting something that she can't have, so maybe she's like, maybe I'll turn my head a little bit to Scott because I don't want somebody else to have him, like because he is kind of cute, like to her, not to me. Ugh. Can y'all tell how I feel about Scott Hope?
We know.
We'll talk about it later. Maybe. We'll see. Yeah, we will. I think I have notes. Who knows? If not, I'll talk about it. We'll call it the Scott Hope talk. I don't know what's happened. Anyways, we cut to a warehouse where we finally catch a good look at the cloven vampire's face, who rocks a nasty scar across his face with a blind eye, voicing that he wants the blood of the... Oh, hold on. That he wants the blood of the Slayer. I gotta imitate him this episode because he's so goofy. He's like, I'm not into the high-tech life Mr. Trick is offering, because he's once again starting to suggest lingering in Sunny D. Trick telling him the not so great news and rumors also of this town already having another Slayer, and he's not sure how that happened, which is so funny because he's like, word, this town already has a Slayer, and he's like, fuck, that means there's two. And this motherfucker jumps up and he's like, I don't care how many damn Slayers there are, I'll kill them all. No, you won't. You need to calm down because you're about to get killed by two of them. Like, he gets double staked in the end. Like, Buffy stakes his ass and Faith stakes his ass. Like, come on now, bro. Like, no. You should have not come to Sunnydale, and you would have been, like, aged past 600 or however old you are. You could have continued to live your pig life and speak pig Latin, eat pigs in a blanket, whatever you be doing with your life. I would have sucked the marrow from her bones.
I could not.
So dead. He also mentions that he wants the Slayer to pay for what she did to him. And this obviously lets us know, because he motions to his fucked up side of his face, they're there for Faith. They're not there for the Slayer. Because in the beginning of the episode, when they're in the limo, he's like, I want to kill the Slayer, suck the marrow from her bone, all that, blah, blah, blah. We think that he's there to kill the Slayer because we don't know about the second Slayer yet, that Faith's in town. So you would be thinking that, but then now we get the full clarity on the fact of this, but we also see that Faith did this to his face. So he's had some kind of battle with her and gotten away, and he's not feeling too good about it. Trick lets him know that they're searching for her, and when the sun goes down, they will be out in full force to find her. Answering the door also, that's had a knock at it for some pizza delivery, and I feel so bad because he pulls the delivery man inside. He all puts that big long glove on so he can reach out into the sunlight, yaga that motherfucker inside, and throws him in the ground. I was like, damn, like, y'all can't still eat some of the pizza and maybe dribble some blood on it or something? Like, you know, that pizza looked damn good. It was just a box, but like, I love pizza, so I'd be wanting some of that. At the Summers residence, Faith is being plated food by Joyce at the dinner table, and I love this scene so much because as soon as Joyce is with Faith, you're like, oh hell, we gotta bring Joyce in now. Shit's so funny. And she's asking her if she likes being the Slayer and why, ignoring Buffy to pay attention to Faith, because, you know, she's like, Mom, can I have the potatoes? And she's like, fuck off, you don't need the potatoes right now. I'm trying to plate Faith's food. She's like, who's Buffy? Weren't you gone a few days ago? Like, I got a new daughter.
She's like, weren't you packing again last night? Why didn't you leave?
Oh, true. Well, Faith tells Joyce that she likes the feeling of her fighting and knowing that the vampires will lose. Buffy adding, it beats the dead feeling that you get when they win and you lose. Faith offering,
I don't let that kind of negative thinking in.
And Joyce immediately agrees with her.
Right. That could get you hurt. Buffy can be awfully negative sometimes. See, honey, you gotta fight that.
And we feel like in this moment too, because we had this big, I all had to basically pause the episode because me and you got into hysterical laughing, talking about, no, this bitch did not just open up, talking about some positive vibes and some fucking Buffy lets negative thinking in and all this other stuff. We didn't know whenever obviously we made the comment about the positive vibes flowing in season 1. I wasn't foreshadowing and thinking about the fact that it was going to pop up in this episode this way, but it's so perfect for us in this podcast for as our side joke for this whole instance to be unfolding. Faith loves Joyce, and Buffy follows Joyce into the kitchen where Joyce confirms that she likes this girl alone with Buffy. Buffy agreeing that she's very personable. She gets along with her mom, her friends, her watcher. Peeking into the dining room as we see Faith stealing Buffy's fries off her plate.
Look, now she's getting along with my fries.
One of my favorite quotes, but not my quote for the episode. Buffy voices how she's actually a little concerned about Faith being creepy. Joyce doesn't get that, nor does anyone else, though. Buffy voicing that she's not wanting to share everything with Faith in her life, because, that's basically what she had to do since Faith arrived. Joyce not minding, though, because if Buffy shares the slaying, then that's 2 out there fighting. That's got to be safer than 1. Wondering if Faith actually may want to take over for Buffy. Buffy declaring, no one can take over for me, Mom. Buffy cluing her into the fact of how you get a new Slayer in general. One Slayer dies, next one's called. And Joyce learning also that Buffy died, and baffled at these facts.
And that means you. When did you die? You never told me you died.
No, it was just for a few minutes.
She's like, oh God, I hate your life. She goes over to the counter. I'm like, damn, Joyce, but it's also funny
because sugarcoat it. She's just
seriously, but she also recalibrates immediately, and she's like, oh wait, I can't be like that, because we remember how it turned out last season. And she turns back around to Buffy and offers more support. She's like, listen, I understand you're the Slayer and that you didn't choose this, it chose you. I've tried to march in the Slayer Pride Parade, which I absolutely love, because then you get the pride in there in the Pride Parade, so it's also coding back to last season where we get the whole gay metaphor and subtext in the episode. But she grows concerned for Buffy over this, and she's like, I don't want you to die. And obviously Buffy embraces her in a hug, and she's like, I'm not gonna die, I know how to do my job. And she's like, besides, I've got all the help that I can stand. Looking back out to Faith, who is she's full on obliterating this whole fucking table. She's eating off of Joyce's plate. She's digging out the bowls that aren't even on her. She's still got food on her own plate, but she's over here eating everything. And I was like, oh fuck. Joyce got Faith high upstairs earlier before they sat down for dinner, so that's why she out here act like this. But jokes aside, I made the comment to you, I was like, it sucks because you can tell Faith's hungry, and it's kind of sad because of everything that we learn a bit later about her. Obviously, she has no one, so she's excited to come home with Buffy. She has no money, no home, because we see that she's living in this motel and she can't even pay for it. She's trying to tell this guy every other day she's going to pay for her fucking rent.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, I'll get it to you tomorrow. And he's like, no, you won't. And she's like, okay. All that. We'll get to it. But it gives a vibe that she's out here scavenging. And personally, I always really feel bad for her when I watch her eat food like this at the table, because in this way, she's lucky to have met Buffy, because Buffy's brought her along and brought her possibly into some better times. Obviously, she's coming to this house, so she's got positive vibes flowing versus the slump vibes flowing,
It gives us good insight on clearly something's missing for her. She obviously is missing a regular home or a regular upbringing, or even just a place to go with some routine resources, which I think is every kid should obviously be entitled to that. It's so unfair when those are not the circumstances and you're a minor and you don't have any control over that. So it was funny, but it was also really eye-opening for both of them, for both Joyce and for Faith. It made me more interested to see where we were going to go, because in a way I was like, fuck, do you want to kick Buffy out again and just let Faith then just adopt her?
That's what I was saying when they were at the table. I was like, damn, not her being the replacement. She's like, she can replace you as Slayer and daughter. You can head back to Los Angeles or wherever the fuck you were.
Literally. Bye, Anne.
Well, dinner's over because Faith ate it all. And later that evening, we find Buffy and Faith out here on patrol. Faith seeming a bit bored and repetitious with the streets that they've already done, because, they have the whole dialogue, which I was kind of talking over. But Faith's telling Buffy, she's like, didn't we already hit this street? And she's like, yeah, but funny thing about vamps, they'll hit a place even after you've been there. Faith makes that catty comment to Buffy. She's like, well, you've been doing this the longest. And Buffy agrees. She's like, I have. And Faith comments, she's like, maybe a little too long. And I'm like, ooh, where's this snort coming from? Damn, y'all were chilling at dinner. Are you Faith a bitch after she eats? I know she's hungry and horny before slaying, but she just becomes fucking bitch and cunt after fucking eating. What is happening? She's like, I got what I needed. She's like, I'm out a dick. She's like, if I kill you out here, I get to go back home to your mom. She was already telling you that she liked me better anyways. Buffy questions if Faith has a problem, but Faith agrees that she is just 5 by 5, living entirely large, actually wondering about Buffy's problem. Buffy retorting, well, maybe I don't sleep nude and wrestle alligators. Faith retorting, well, maybe you should start because obviously something in your bottle needs uncorking. What is it? The angel thing? Fucking triggering the hell out of Buffy to wonder how she knows about any of that. But Faith is also telling her, she's like, I just know what your friends have told me. Big love, big loss, Buffy not dealing and not moving on. Buffy snapping at her to not worry about her fucking fucking personal life. Faith wondering, why does she get so strung up? And I like, she's like, what are you getting so strung up for, B? And Buffy's not respect. She's like, why are your lips still moving, F? Oh shit. Totally us. Absolutely how we would come back to somebody, especially if we were starting to get fucking irritated, and you can see they're pressing each other's nerves right here. Faith, I love her too. She's like, did I just hear a threat? And Buffy's like, would you like to? She's like, I could let you. And just when we think these girls are about to throw down, a group of fucking vampires attack them. They start to duel them. Buffy slaying one instantly off screen. Faith battling one, claiming it hits like a bitch and her dead mother hits harder than that. Buffy gets ganged up on by vamps, calling out to Faith to stake that one and give her a hand. But Faith continually is just repeatedly punching and punching and punching this vampire. And it's intense. You were like, what the fuck is happening? Like, you were like, damn, this motherfucker ain't gonna have a face afterwards. We were watching the episode. Buffy is near about to get bit by one of the vamps, and he's like calling out, he's like, for Kikistos we live, for Kikistos you'll die. Dumb. But Buffy manages to get loose and stake the vamp in our second 2K per slay this episode because they got a little extra budget. Buffy moves over then to pull Faith off of that vampire and stake it off screen. She's like, okay, well, you can't dust it. I will. And she starts to trip out on Faith. She's like, you're living large on that vampire while its friends cornered me. And Faith is confused because she's like, well, that's my job. And I like her comment too, because she's like, well, if doing violence to vampires upsets you, maybe you're in the wrong line of work. So funny, but it's also like not contextual to the situation. You can tell Faith isn't picking up on this cue of like the verbal stuff that Buffy's giving her. She's like, that's not the principle of what I'm trying to say. And obviously Buffy comments to her and calls her out, and she's like, well, maybe you seem to like it a little too much. And Faith claims, I'm getting the job done. I thought you said you could handle yourself. I'm like, ooh, shit. And we kind of end our scene there. But that alley fight, we see Faith and we get the first like taste of the fact of what she's going through in a way. The fact that she can lose herself in the violence. It's not about survival or protecting people. Just like she said with Joyce at the house, she's like, I just know I'm going to win and they're going to lose. Like, I get a rush out of the slaying. Like, it's fun, whatever. And we see that she's not fighting like Buffy, who obviously balances skill with urgency. Faith seems to be working something out emotionally as well, which we will find out. And the vampire is just the punching bag. Basically, she's mirroring Buffy whenever she was pissed off over Ted and fighting that vampire with the trash can lid, like taking out her anger issues. And it's kind of that same energy. So it's very interesting how we already get the mirror and the parallels between the two, even if it's a callback to episodes. And when we did that episode with Naj, I was talking to her about this without saying it in that episode, because I was like, we get to see this with another person next season, to where you have that outlet to be the Slayer, but also like you need to do this in a healthy way, because Buffy wasn't expressing a healthy situation, I guess, in that episode. So it's a callback to that, because obviously she's hitting that vampire long after it's necessary, and her face is very intense and very locked in, almost blank when she's doing it too, because she's just like punching him and rocking him back and forth by his shirt and stuff, slamming his head into the ground, all this. I'm like, girl, you triggered? Are you reliving some kind of trauma right now? Like, what's going on? I need to know. We see later, because she's running from the death of her watcher and everything else, there's a lot going on. And with the fact that she never notices this, but these are Kikistos' men, because that's what I don't know. As a kid, I used to always think that she knew that these were Kikistos guys, and that's why she was going in on it. She's like, let that motherfucker know I'm coming for his ass, but also not really. Like, if I kill you, maybe he'll be scared because I took you out, you know? But the guys over there with Buffy is saying, like, for Kikistos we live, for Kikistos you'll die. I noticed this time around that she didn't know that those were Kikistos men. So I'm like, what is going on? And her comment on her mother in the scene too, when she's like, my dead mother hits harder than that triggered me in a weird way, where I was like, oh shit. We learn in this episode that two very important, you know, even if she didn't have a good relationship and she was estranged from her mother, which might be the idea of it, she kind of gives me the vibe she had like a drunk mom that was like very impartial to her children and didn't pay attention to them, you know. Then they had to grow up on their own. But she's lost the two women in her life that are supposed to be important figures, obviously being her watcher and her mother. So two people that could be guiding her through life and teaching her about herself are not there anymore. You know. And we also start to see, I wrote my notes that like, this isn't about being wild or badass. It's someone disassociating through violence. And she's doing it a lot differently than the way Buffy did in Ted. Like, Buffy got over that really quickly. And Buffy's energy just feels different than the way Faith's feels here. Even though I can make comparisons, that's why I'm tackling the issue right now so hard and talking about it. I thought it was interesting, but it also shows us that Faith can be unpredictable and excessive. It's like not just a kill for her. It's not about the mission versus how Kendra was. And Buffy herself is typically calculated and protects people and makes the most of her moves efficiently. Faith's got like heavy issues already. And we can see it's like some of the stuff starting to catch up with her because she wasn't acting like this in the beginning of the episode. Now midway through, she's having this whole fucking emotional problem.
Yeah. It was excessive, and obviously, like you're saying, it speaks onto more underlying trauma for her. So it took away from what was actually happening, and it made it somehow more, again, about her character. But to me, it was annoying because I'm like, you have a stake, you have the ability to end this, like, let's be done. You know, I was with Buffy because I was like, also the other person here that's like on the same side as you is struggling a little bit. So for her to just completely black out like that, it showcases that there is a sense of impulsiveness and like irrationality where I think that's what makes me love Buffy in the way she is, because like we keep saying, she's very middle of the road and she's very level-headed. So you don't catch her a lot of times in these impulsive moments. You know, we've seen one time, like you were saying, where she was like really having it out on the one vampire and really on everyone because of the Ted situation. But usually she doesn't let this kind of stuff ripple over into the slaying, because it's also kind of like she just wants to get done with those. You know, she doesn't want to spend all night fighting the vampires if she can just stake them and be done in 2 minutes.
Faith would have been there till
She's
the next
very
morning.
like, and it just goes on her resourcefulness. She's not going to deplete her own fuel tank by fighting one vampire for 27 minutes when she can just fucking be done with it. And I think that goes to show too what they were just saying. Whether Buffy's been doing this too long, quote unquote, or not, doesn't matter as much as the fact that she's learned how to do it properly. You know, and I think that's what we see here. So I think that like effectiveness is key in what you're doing, and Faith is not being very effective if she's letting her emotional trauma and turmoil just kind of steer the ship every time.
Yeah, and she could be making it easier as well because of the fact that she's like, I thought you could handle yourself. Well, Buffy's over here got 3 vampires attacking her.
And you have one.
Like, you're fighting one. Like,
and
Buffy's over here taking on
useless.
3. Like, do you not expect her to get slightly overpowered or not have a lot going on?
Yeah.
Not all Slayers can take out 5 at one time.
And then just to leave it with that.
But you're distracted.
Yeah, and then just to leave it with like, oh, I thought you could fend for yourself, and throw that back at her. I'm just kind of like, well, she did.
Yeah.
More than you.
Absolutely. Moving along, though, the next day at school, Giles is being informed by Buffy of Faith's anger problems the night before, and he just calls her a plucky fighter, and he's like, she doesn't have a whole other life like you, Buffy. And I'm like, oh, wow, he's already like honed into this. Buffy claiming she totally has her life at the moment since everyone just loves Faith. Giles saying he can reach out to her watcher in England and touch base. Giles asking if Buffy has any more info on the vamp attack. Her quoting one of them mentioned living for kissing toast. Giles growing worried as he clearly understands that she meant Kakistos, and he questions her that and heads into the library informing Buffy on Kakistos' history.
Kakistos is Greek. It means the worst of the worst. It's also the name of a vampire so old that his hands and feet are cloven.
It means worst of the worst. I was like, the worst of the worst? He about to get a big ass dick later. He ain't that big and bad, I promise. Just a Faith, maybe. And he's big because he's 7 foot tall, but whatever. Buffy makes the connection between his arrival being right around the time her bestest new little sister arrives in town as well. Coincidence? She thinks not. Buffy tells him to check with her watcher, and she will try to talk to Faith about Kakistos, to see if it rings a bell or an alarm. Buffy always getting names wrong. I had to call that out this episode too. I was like, talking about some khaki trousers. She called him kissing toast. So I was getting something fucked up. Like, I always bring it back to Billy in his asteroid body instead of astral body. She called Akatha alfalfa. No. Dead. First sighting also of the little green jade mug of Giles. He was walking down the hallway and I was like, it's the green mug. But obviously I have one as well and I've showed it to you. And I was like, it's Giles's mug. And you're like, I know about that. And I'm like, all right, great. Here we are. I drink my tea out of it often. A very big 90s trend. Buffy heads out of the library, bumping into Scott in the halls. More so him and her, because, you know, he's like fucking stalking her at this point. She tries to brush him off. He calls her out on it and calls this his last-ditch effort to woo her, asking her to attend the festival this weekend. Buster Keaton, I don't even know who the fuck that is, but Buster B. Keaton, I guess. She starts to agree, saying she may like to see a little more of him, of course, talking through code, because she's like, Buster Keaton is who I'm talking about, but actually I'm talking about Scott Keaton. Michael Keaton, Batman. And then this motherfucker pulls out a gift for her, which turns out to be a Claudia ring, saying he heard it means friendship. And I'm sure to him looks like she threw this shit on the ground because she just drops it. Like, obviously this is triggering for Buffy. Like, she did not expect this, and she's like, God damn it, I can't catch a break. She's on the verge of tears, saying she can't do this. Giles approaching as Scott scurries off because he gets the message. Giles asks if Buffy's okay, and she plays it off, asking if he got in touch with her watcher at the retreat though, and he's like, I did. And she's like, well, what did her watcher say? And he's like, well, that would be nothing because Faith's watcher is dead. And we're like, oh fuck, that's crazy, just to find out that she's dead. Faith lied, so now we've got a reason to possibly mistrust Faith in some way, and we're seeing her attitude and the way she's lashing out on vampires, and maybe that there's more to her story that we don't know as well, which is so fun for storytelling. But this is the point where I feel like I have to pause and talk about fucking Scott Hope. Like, what are your initial thoughts right now on Scott Hope?
Well, to be honest, I didn't think he was going to be such a primary fixture in this episode. I didn't pay him enough attention, I don't think. To me, he was just like this random dude that wouldn't leave Buffy alone, and he didn't mean much more than that to me in this episode. Obviously, with Buffy's luck, I really don't anticipate anything normal happening to her anymore. So either something really offset and out of pocket, like the Claudia ring, is going to happen, or Scott's going to become a vampire or the monster of the week or something along the lines of. So it's like I'm already anticipating the worst out of Scott for some reason. Mm-hmm. But the fact that he would show up, number one, you haven't even had a single date with this girl. You haven't been out a singular time, and you're gonna give her a ring? I don't give a fuck if it. I don't. Okay, then give me a friendship bracelet. Give me a keychain. Give me a necklace. A ring?
Don't give me nothing. What are you talking about? Like, ask me out on the date like you're trying to do. Like, I just don't. I mean, obviously, it's put in here for the callback and like the connection to Angel and all this, but it's so out of pocket. Like, no one would ever do that.
No.
Like, who is gonna do that? Like,
no.
After meeting somebody and dating them for a couple months, I ain't giving them no jewelry.
Exactly. And that, you're just doubling down on Buffy's torture. You know what I mean? And that's what I'm saying. This show just constantly brings her back into some turmoil, even if it's not in real life happening. Like, it's either Angel showing up in her damn dreams, this random motherfucker giving her a goddamn Claudia ring. Like, where did you even get that? I'm like, Angel, y'all been on a shopping spree together. Y'all picked that out at the same time, didn't you?
Angel
You've been watching me this whole time.
Angel came into Scott's dreams and he's like, hey, get Buffy a ring. Actually, he got it out of Buffy's drawer at her house when he went to smoke with Joyce, and he brought it to her. He's like, this is the same ring. I didn't have any money because I'm a 17-year-old high school student. No, those are all components that lead me to not really liking Scott in general. I like low-key don't want to spoil anything, but I also want to tell you a spoiler that he's normal. He's not a monster. He never has any kind of overall arc he's just a simple little schoolboy that Buffy's dating, or like has the element to possibly date,
I figured it by that point, but I was
just that way you're not anticipating too much. You can focus on other stuff.
I was just waiting for something to happen other than him just like randomly being in every corner that she walks into or something. It was just too much. It's like, when would we do that, and why would we do that, and where would we do that? Like,
nobody does it. No. Anyway. It just leads me to never just the introduction. If this scene hadn't have ever happened, I might have been like, this might be a nice normal kind of
he's pesky,
lighter version of Owen that we saw, because obviously we know Buffy can't date a normal guy. That's why she was attracted to Angel even more so, because he knew her and could be a part in some way of her Slayer life. Normal boys ain't going to cut it with that. She's going to have to hide secrets or tell him about it at some point. Like, it's going to be a whole problem, or we're going to see everything unfold like we saw it Never Kill a Boy on the First Date, and he's going to be the boy who gets killed in the first date,
Yes.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But this, like I said, out of pocket, this is like, I'm never going to be on board for any of the Scott Hope, like Buffy be together type thing.
Fuck no.
Without saying too much, like as we get into episodes, you'll see how like a little bit more starts to unfold. But I'm not the biggest fan of him at all. So it's just like, I don't know why he's written in here as the show as a pushed love interest for Buffy. Willow trying to push him on her. It just puts a bad taste in my mouth. And then also we're coming off of Angel, and I'm like, no, but this boy is who's going to replace Angel? No way at all. Absolutely not. I'm not standing for it at all.
Mm-mm.
Go ahead and dust me. I'll be the 2K.
Dust me.
I'm out of here. All right, let's get back on track, though. I don't want to talk about Scott Hope anymore. We don't have to say anything about him until the end of the episode.
He's making us lose hope.
Yes, I've lost all hope in Scott Hope. That night at some crappy rundown motel, Faith's being hounded for money. What we were talking about earlier at the hotel with the guy. He's like, I need you to pay the fucking money. And she's like, I'm going to get it to you tomorrow. And he's like, you said that yesterday and the day before that, and the day before that. And she's like, listen, I promise I'm good for it. And he's like, I don't think you know what a promise is.
He's like, I don't think you know what good for it is.
I know. And then she's all trying to flirt with him too. She's like, what does she say?
No, he's like, I don't run this place. And she's
like, I bet you will
one day
someday.
you will.
Yeah, she all took her top off and showed him her tits, like basically with her eyes, you know. That's exactly what happens. He does give her the benefit of the doubt though, and like he's like, okay, I'll extend it one more fucking day. He's like, I'll pay your $17.
I know.
Whatever. And then Buffy enters as he's trying to exit. And I thought it was so funny because he makes the comment, he's like, roommates are extra. And Buffy's like, I'm just visiting. I was like, thank God Buffy said that. Should have been like, yeah, girl, you ain't pay that rent yet. Well, Faith questions what brings Buffy to the poor side of town, and Buffy goes right in on mentioning 𝐤𝐸𝐸, which turns out to be an alarm sounding for Faith. Buffy tells her that he's in town and wonders what he did to her as Faith goes into pack and leave mode, basically acting like Buffy last episode. She pulls out that bag so quick, and she notes in this moment that it's not what he did to her, is what she did to him. Buffy reminds her that she came here for a reason and she can help Faith, trying to give her the back off and butt out speech. But Buffy then also reminds her of her earlier words of being like, you got to deal and move on. Well, you got the moving on part, but like, what about dealing? Is that just something you're going to dump on me? Faith claims that she doesn't know her and she will take care of this, starting to leave with her bag as Buffy calls out,
Like you took care of your watcher?
ooh, burn. Faith stops dead in her tracks and looks to Buffy pained. Buffy guessing 𝐤𝐸𝐸 killed her. Faith's like, there's not even a word for what he did to her, which is kind of fucked up of a comment to make back. He didn't just kill her. He did something torturous to her.
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
And Faith had to watch it. When obviously we found that out in a little bit, but I was like, oh shit. Then we get a knock on the door and she peeps outside and sees the motel attendant again. And I love it because we're looking through the peephole and we just see his face looking like this. Just come up to the screen. I wish once again that we did video so people could see this shit because it was so funny. But like, we don't know he's dead yet, but that's kind of funny. She's like, what the fuck does he want now? Buffy starts to declare to her that if Faith runs, 𝐤𝐸𝐸 will run after her, as he's already done. Faith thinking that's where the head start comes in hand, opening the door and the two realizing the attendant's actually a dead body, and 𝐤𝐸𝐸 with Trick and other vampires is holding him up, grabbing her through the door as Buffy helps fend him off, shutting the door as Faith freaks out. Buffy grabs Faith and they tail it out the back window. Scream later, escape now. The vamps chasing after them down alleys, and they take shelter in a warehouse as some run by. Just to pop into that scene that we just left really quick, I almost thought you were going to be like, how his arm get in that damn room? Because vampires can't come in without him being invited. Just to throw it out there for any future instance, when it's not your home or permanent address, vampires can enter. So hotels, motels, schools, things like that, they can get in without an invitation because it's not your actual home. So Faith was fucked. I don't know why she didn't just like say, I'm going to go to Buffy's house and ask if I can use the spare room, you know?
Right.
Can we get bunk beds in Buffy's room type thing? Like if I really need to stay, because they could have just found her and broken in at any point and just killed her in her sleep. So if Faith actually sleeps, who knows? But I thought that was really interesting. And then we realize that they're okay. Buffy questions what happened to Faith, letting her know that she needs to tell her the story. And Faith is scared, but then begins to tell it, breaking down emotionally in the process.
I was there when he killed my watcher, and I saw what he did to her, what he was gonna do to me. I tried to stop him, but I couldn't, and I ran.
Faith, first rule is like, don't die. You did the right thing, okay? You didn't die. Now you do the math. One of him, two of us. Yes.
No.
Meaning that this place that they are in is his place, 𝐤𝐸𝐸's. The two noticing various dead, drained bodies on the floor. You know, the pizza guy over there in the corner and everybody else, they've been killing up in this motherfucker. Buffy noting, she's like, oh shit, they drove us here. And the vampires begin to run in. And that's when you kind of notice, you didn't really pay attention when they come through the door and smack through it, but like they actually did get led to the same warehouse that we saw earlier. And I was like, oh shit, that was kind of smart on their tactic. Did they know that they were that close to Faith? Were they planning an attack? Or were they just waiting for, like, because they got there the night before and this is the next day, they just been waiting for the sun to go down so they could go get her at the hotel? Like, because obviously they knew Faith was there because they showed up at the hotel, you know?
Yeah.
Buffy begins taking on the vampires, getting an upper hand as 𝐤𝐸𝐸 squares in on Faith. Buffy hollering at her as she throws her a crowbar.
Don't die.
I love that moment because she's telling her, remember what I said, don't fucking die. Because she told her, she's like, it's a good thing that you ran. If you can't fight something, run from it first. Like, yes, don't run from it indefinitely, but get yourself to safety. You know what I mean? And then recalibrate and come back later. If you don't feel like you stand a chance, then at least you did the right thing. You got out of the situation and you can come help or whatever else you need. Faith catches the crowbar and goes to hit Kakistos, but he punches her back through a wooden column and picks up terrified Faith because this bitch is scared of him. There's terror in her heart, and it's like her any bit of Slayer ability that's in her body has now left. And then he starts repeatedly striking her in the face like she was doing with that vampire earlier, dropping her. Buffy stakes one of the vamps and moves over to Kakistos to take him on herself, which I love because Buffy's like, well, fuck, she can't do it. Like, I'll go over here and do it. And Buffy goes in on his ass. This guy is a height difference. Like, as I said, you can see it on the screen to Sarah Michelle Gellar's stature in general, but just Buffy being tiny herself and being like, well, this guy's like super tall and he's a vampire, but I can still take him. Where is Faith with this energy? And was this also Faith's energy at first until he like got the upper hand? But obviously Faith got some kind of shit done last time because she all scratched his face all up. Like, I want to know what she did that with. Like, was that before what happened to her watcher happened? I don't know. I would love to see a little flashback to Faith taking on Kakistos the first time. Mr. Trick looks at the vampire as Buffy's taking him on, and he's like, if we don't do something, the master could get killed. And he's like,
dips.
He's like Spike in the episode with Buffy, like facing off with Angelus, and he's like, oh well, should be good, that's fine. He's like, our prayers are with him. And then he turns to leave so they don't get a stake themselves, noting also that modern vampires see the big picture versus the vengeance crusades that never work out and are tired. And I love how he calls that out. That's why he's been pushing for Kakistos to not do this. He's like, the vengeance vendetta usually turns out bad for stuff, you know what I mean? Like, you never want to follow things through with revenge. Talk about it, work it out, communicate it. He tried to help him see the big picture, but he didn't want to, and that's what led to Kakistos' downfall. So whatever. He's like, I don't care how many Slayers there are, I'll kill them all. But yet, nope, you're dead in 2 seconds. Which we're about to get to. Buffy finally sends her stake into Kakistos' chest, but it does nothing, and he knocks her back, laughing and mocking at her. I guess you need a bigger stake, Slayer. I think I have the clip to put in here, but that was funny too.
I guess you need a bigger stake, Slayer.
I can't laugh like him, but I will say that I like his laugh. The way that the actor did it, like, it's very like,
it was like very sinister.
It's theatrical. I love it. Faith gets up and grabs that long wooden column beam that he knocked her through and shoves it through his chest, him turning to dust as he gets a very upset and puzzled look on his face. And we get the 3K per slay on Kakistos. Faith, out of breath, is approached by Buffy, who asks if she's hungry. Faith replying, starved. I wrote my notes to comment on you whenever we were watching it. You bust out laughing. You're like, I can't even focus on the scene because of Buffy's face. Whenever Slater, she's like batting up against the wall with her mouth dropped and shit.
It was so funny.
Taken aback. Are you excited that Faith overcome her fear and killed Kakistos?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
I thought Buffy was going to have to do it for her, honestly.
I know. Well, she did basically, but it didn't work. And like, obviously, I think it's funny because, like I said, the guy's so big, so he needed a bigger stake. I mean, he didn't need that whole ass beam, like maybe like a pole or some shit to go through his body. But at the same time, it was a really cool thing. And I mean, for her to pick up that big ass spear and stick it through his body, it once again shows us what Slayer's strength can do. Awesome. But I love it so much for Faith, seeing that she's really scared at how she makes the amends of everything that happened. And she finally stands up to Kakistos in the scene. And it's not, once again, about being a badass Slayer. It's more about survival, which is something that she can connect to with Buffy and how their story so much mirrors. And I was making comments to you while we were watching about how basically Buffy's first big battle was the Master, and it was somebody that she was also scared of because she knew the prophecy that she was going to die if she went to meet him and stuff. And Faith felt the next time she ran up against Kakistos, she was also going to die because she barely got out the last time, and she saw what he did to her watcher. And she makes that comment. She's like, I saw what he was going to do to me, like after what he did to her. And you feel very upset with her. And I like it because she takes back control of all the fear and grief that she's been putting out there. And obviously it's not a magical fix for everything, but in that moment, it's like she stops running. And for someone like Faith, I think that's a very big step. Because obviously, like I said, prefacing that we don't know about her past and stuff, and we never really fully find out, but we know she comes from some bad blood. She comes from bad energy and not growing up right, and then also getting forced into this chosen status, which we know from any other Slayer is not an easy calling, no matter what. It either means seclusion or it means upsettedness, it means not normalcy, all those things. Faith's having to deal with it just as much because she's a Slayer as well. Something that I wanted to bring out before we get into our final scenes. I keep thinking about why Faith really came to Sunnydale. I found myself sitting with it because on the surface, I feel like she's running from her past. Her watcher was murdered. She's traumatized and she's got this vampire literally hunting her down. But part of me was wondering if something deeper was going on. Like maybe she came here looking for help and maybe that she doesn't know how to ask for it because she obviously knew about Buffy. She comes in saying she wanted to meet her and compare notes, all of that. She came to the town that she knew that the Slayer she had heard about was residing in, but didn't come to town and immediately be like, hey, I hear you're a legend. I've got this fucking vampire that's bullshitting me and I haven't been able to overcome him. Can you help me fight him? Mm-hmm. She just acts aloof like nothing's happened because she doesn't know 𝐞𝐸 is going to chase her down into this town. I thought it was interesting because like, why didn't she just come with all of this energy and say all these things? Because Faith shows up hoping that Buffy, I think, can show her how to survive the Slayer life because of that without saying it. And like I said, instead of asking for support, I feel like she just ends up bringing baggage with her wrapped up in bravado and one-liners because Faith is just putting on this whole front of her energy, not letting anything be exposed. She's like, I don't want to say anything. And it's almost like she's reaching out the only way she knows how by pretending everything's cool, even though her trauma is like literally chasing her like all the time. Like, I feel like she wants connection, but deep down, she doesn't feel like she deserves it. And that was something that just hit me this episode because I was like, well, why didn't you do all the things I said in the beginning of this statement? Like, why didn't you just come to town and do all this stuff this way instead of coming to town and being like, I don't know, because it seems like she was standoffish to Buffy in certain ways or like challenging her in other ways. And I'm like, what exactly does this mean? You know, you're coming to this town to meet this girl that you've heard of, and then you're going to act the way that you're acting while you're here.
Yeah, but I think that goes back on what I was saying in the beginning, which is that you can sense that there's this element of self-preservation with Faith. Like she has her guard up and it almost is like she leans on seeming authentic or like seeming badass or seeming a certain way to preserve herself, because if you seem that way, then people ask less questions, because if you seem like an open book, then people aren't so curious about what's going on behind the cover of the book. You know what I mean? So it's like, if she's seemingly conveying all these stories and all these things of her past, then people are so distracted that they are not going to realize that there's so much more going on there. And they're not going to be bothered right away to be like, hey, but where'd you actually come from? You know what I mean? Like all these tales are great and all these stories of your slaying are great, but it's like a distraction method, but it's also to impress them, to make them feel like they have something relatable because they're used to all this shit dealing with Buffy. So it's like enlightening to her friends, you know what I mean? So it's like she's kind of, it's like Buffy said, you know, she's looking to get her life back, but she's not looking to go halfsies on it. And that's what the vibe is, you know. She's
Look at
like,
you remembering a quote.
She's like very much, well, it's in my notes, but she's very much giving that energy where it's almost like you want to really accept her and like her, and the more you get into the actual parts of her that she's not speaking on, like you were saying, because she isn't the kind of person to get vulnerable and communicate these things right away. She wants to seem put together and cool and like a good impression. I get it. But you should know, being the Slayer and all the things that you have to endure with people together that are around you doing this with, you have to get comfortable, you have to trust each other, you almost have to like completely have your guards down when you're doing this alongside other people. Otherwise, yeah, you're good to just go on and be a lone soldier, I guess, which is like the energy that she is giving too. It's like you can tell she hasn't had maybe a pack of friends, and it's just been solely her and her watcher. So
yeah, absolutely. I will say that I feel like Faith came looking for something, and even though it didn't unfold like a natural way, I mean, it unfolded naturally, obviously, but it didn't unfold in like the way I said it could have been.
She wasn't forthright
hot with it or anything like that. Like at least it still sealed it up when she came looking for something, she inevitably found it.
Yeah,
you know, because she helped the situation. Like we leave this scene with Faith, and we don't obviously see her the rest of this episode, but we know that she's like possibly on a better pathway than what she was before.
We know at least
fucking Buffy
dealt with something major, and it was the one thing seemingly that's like chasing her right now. So it's something at least is dealt with. So
Which, once again, call back to how similar her and Buffy can be on certain levels, because they went through the same thing. Like, Buffy's big thing was the master, like I said, and she overcame him. And I made the fun note to you that I actually just noticed watching it with you the day that we watched it together for your reaction video, that Faith slayed Kakistos with that big ass staff wooden spear, and Buffy slayed her big problem being the master with that big chunk of wood that the desk had flipped over. So they both ended up killing their biggest enemy. Like, I would have thought Buffy would have said the master is her toughest kill versus the three. You know what I mean? So they could have put that in there, but I thought it was interesting and fun parallels, and we're going to continue to see them with the two. The next day in the library, Giles informs Willow and Buffy that Faith is to stay there until a new watcher is assigned under his care. Buffy saying good and awarding Faith for really coming through in the end, and also noting that she had a lot to deal with, but she did it, got it behind her. Standing up to do the same, looking to the two to finally tell them the truth of her final battle last season.
Angel was cured.
I'm sorry.
When I killed him, Angel was cured. Your spell worked at the last minute, Will. I was about to take him out, and something went through him, and he was Angel again. He didn't remember anything that he'd done. He just held me. But it was too late, and I had to. So I told him that I loved him, and I kissed him, and I killed him.
She doesn't know if all that info helps with Giles' spell or not. He says it will, and Willow tells her that she's sorry for her. Buffy says it's okay. She held on to that for so long, and it felt good to get it out. She leaves the library as Willow tells Giles that she knows that she can help him with this spell, even if he doesn't like her playing with mystical forces, and he simply looks at her and tells her that there is no spell. Willow cluing in that he's been doing this to get Buffy to open up about this event and deal with her pain. And I immediately, I had to basically pause it before we went to the next scene. We were ignoring Scott Hope and them in the hallway the next part of the episode. But I love that Giles did that. You know, I wrote my notes to ask you, did you feel like it was right for Giles to manipulate Buffy into talking about Angel, or do you feel like it was like partly shady or anything like that? But on my side of things, I've already told you, and I'll tell everybody else, like, I love Giles' tactic with this, because the spell and the energy around the Cathla binding him, it's a good excuse to get more out of Buffy that she's obviously not saying. And he was right. It led to all this and helped Buffy deal with some guilt and grief that she had, you know?
Yeah, totally. I agree. I'm afraid that there's not much Giles is going to do that will make me look at it like a negative thing.
Except for when it's the Dark Age.
Yeah. But I feel like I understand him, and I think that you could see the relief on his face when she finally makes the statement she needs to make to really conclude this whole chapter of what happened and be honest and upfront about what really the circumstances were. And it becomes really clear, obviously, that this was like some sort of scheme to make her open up and to make her divulge more. And him knowing as an adult that is therapeutic for people to do, and how difficult that is for really anyone, but especially the younger you are, the more difficult it is to really realize how much that's necessary for you to actually have closure and move on, even if it's yourself giving you the closure by talking about it one time. So I think that it's major props really to Giles, because he did such a good thing to kind of try and free Buffy from the past that keeps inevitably getting brought up, and him just having to watch and sit on the sidelines and watch her struggle and watch her get tormented with dreams of Angel, or she can't even have like a conversation in the hallway with this boy without him showing up with a fucking Clawda ring, like all these things, so I'm sure Giles was probably just like, holy shit, how can I throw her a life raft at this point? So I think that was his motive, and that's clear. So you can't be mad at Giles.
Yeah. No, I agree. And that's like where I come down on the side of things with him is just the fact that he lied in order to help her find peace. And it was a little white lie. It was just like a fib of a situation. It wasn't like a right out lie
It wasn't
or an
like the
outright lie.
lie that Xander did,
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
We love that one. But no, like I come out on the side of liking Giles more because of this instance. And it makes me feel once again like that kind of dad fatherly vibes from him going towards her and him wanting to take care of her emotionally and physically. And it just like speaks volumes between the two. And I love that Buffy finally says that what she does and closes the scene and closes out what you said, like the emotional triggers that she's been having. Like now we can finally possibly move on into a breath of fresh energy with this series as we go on. Because now we can finally get over Angel. We know he's not coming back and everything's great.
Thank God. Maybe he'll stay out of her dreams too.
Well, we'll see in 2 seconds from now. Buffy meets Scott outside at his class to apologize about her behavior in our next scene and how she recently got out of a bad relationship, essentially like chalking it up how she could possibly want to hang out with him and pay him attention. He agrees only after 2 seconds of thoughts. I love that because I was like, I wrote my notes, Aries be like, because he's like, I'm going to need some time to think about this. And he takes 2 steps away. He's like, all right, I thought about it. He's like, this sounds great. All right, Dookie, let's do it. They do agree up to meet later that night, though, after Buffy takes care of something. That thing being our last scene, where we flash over to Angel's mansion at night. Buffy enters for the first time since the battle, walks in as the Close Your Eyes theme plays. She stands in the spot that she sacrificed Angel in and holding her Claddagh ring, kneeling down, telling it goodbye, sending it onto the floor and walking out of the building, letting go. We remain in point of view of the ring on the floor as she disappears in the background, and we fade to black. And here doesn't end the episode. A small light appears on the ring as it begins to move on the floor. A huge flash of white light appears and Angel's body falls from above onto the floor, covered in sweat and taken aback. He lifts his head, staring around at his surroundings, not sure where he is and looking traumatized. We now fade to black, and here endeth the episode. Bruh. I love how I was like 2 seconds ago talking about in Angel, we can close the story and we don't have to worry about him coming back. All right, he's back. What? Okay, so we didn't really
I forgot
contemplate
about it too because I was like, thank God.
I know. I was like, bitch, did you watch the episode also with me sitting beside me? I was like, I have your reaction to this. You were like, gagged. What do you think that this means? That is my Slayerette predictions. One of my questions. What do you think Angel's going to be like upon his return from hell? And how did he come back? Like, what do you think this means?
I have no fucking idea. I knew this was going to happen because obviously it just can't be the end of Angel. He's like way too prominent of a character. But I have no idea. This is more confusing to me than asking me where the fuck Buffy been all summer long. You know what I mean?
How do you feel about it though? Like, do you feel like excited about it? Do you like the continuation of that Angel being back as a thing?
I don't know. I think I'm indifferent right now because we're leaving off the cusp of Angel having been Angelus for so long that we didn't really get Angel except for the last like 2 minutes before Buffy had to kill him. So coming off of just experiencing Angelus, I'm not like thrilled about it, if that makes sense.
We do know this is Ensouled Angel that's back though.
Yes, and that being the difference, of course, like makes me a little bit happier, but I think coming off of such a bad taste and knowing his like past directly now and his capacity to do certain things a certain way makes him forever questionable and untrustworthy whether he has his soul back or not. Right. And then secondly, the problems that will arise for Buffy. That's what concerns me really. Yeah. And I think that he torments her enough just like even in her dreams and stuff like that. So for him to be potentially back in the flesh is that doesn't sit well with me, and I think that maybe stems from more of a concern for Buffy than anyone else. But I want her to have her normalcy back as much as she wants to have her normalcy back, and I don't think that Angel reflects normalcy to her, whether he has his soul back, whether he's a vampire, whether he's a normal human, whether he's a fucking alien, like whatever he is.
It's been already too many problems
with Angel. Too much PTSD. It's just like getting back together with that one rotten X over and over and over and over again, and then expecting a different outcome and it never happening any differently, you know? So it's like you're always going to have the undertone of those experiences. So unfortunately for Angel, like I don't trust him with Buffy, I guess, is what I'm
Yeah.
saying. Or I don't
Like,
trust it for her journey right now. I feel like she has so
it's
much
too soon. It's too
more.
fresh. There's
Yeah,
scars.
yeah. She
She needs
should
to heal still.
heal. She
She's
just
trying to
has.
move on.
Yeah, and she also has this new Slayer now, you know, it's like she has so much adapting to do to even just get her normal own individual journey back on track, to have to now share it alongside another Slayer and now be coupled up with the idea of Angel coming back is just a lot for
Yeah.
someone who's already dealt with a lot.
Absolutely. The only other thing I want to really add on to it is that I think it's so funny that she just like fully moved on and left her ring there. And I was like making a comment. I was like, we never see that ring again now. Like the ring is in the past fully. I did want to make a callback because I forgot to call it out. Obviously, she's wearing her ring and her cross necklace that Angel gave her in the final fight for Becoming Part 2 with like her outfit that she has on when she takes on Angelus. And these are the last two times those are the last two times this episode and that episode when we ever see the cross and the symbolism basically from Angel. Like those elements are out from now on. So we don't see them anymore. But as soon as Buffy tries to move on, he comes the fuck back. You know what I mean? Must be Mercury retrograde up in this bitch because that's what happens. Ain't it always like the second you try to move on from an ex or try to really go back to yourself and retreat back into your life, the fucking ex got to come out from the woodworks texting you over Mercury retrograde and all this other
100%.
Like,
yeah.
So,
it's just that Sunnydale should be called Mercury retrograde.
I'm excited for what starts to unfold. Obviously, we know about other stuff. And whenever we ended watching the episode together, and I was like, and now we get the setup for Angel the series.
Yeah.
Because he's back. So it'd be interesting to find out what happens. And I can't wait for you to watch it. Taking a look at metaphor and themes that really drive Faith, Hope, and Trick, because beneath the new villains and Faith's chaotic energy, this episode is doing heavy emotional lifting. At its core, this is an episode about duality, emotional masks, and the fear of facing what hurts. Faith shows up in Sunnydale like a storm, loud, wild, fun, and fearless, but underneath that bravado, she's hiding her own pain, and that makes for the perfect mirror for Buffy, where Buffy is still haunted by what happened with Angel, literally dreaming about him, carrying guilt she can't bring herself to say out loud. Faith is pretending like nothing touches her at all. Two Slayers, two coping strategies, both running from something. Faith isn't just a new Slayer, she's a metaphor, a walking, talking version of everything Buffy wishes that she could be right now, unburdened, disconnected, untouched by grief, but that's just a trick. Trick. And the episode makes it clear that emotional avoidance has consequences. Buffy's silence about Angel is eating her alive. She pulled away from her friends, hiding the weight of what she did, and it's only finally when she tells Giles the truth, confessing that Angel had his soul when she killed him, that we see Buffy begin to reclaim some peace. That's the real point of the episode. It's not about defeating the vampire, it's about facing truth. And then there's Mr. Trick, who offers his own metaphor. The world is changing. He's smooth, modern, and ambitious, a sharp contrast to the old school brute Kakistos. Trick represents adaptability, and in a way, so does Faith. They both shake up the status quo, and they both force Buffy to evolve, to stop living in the shadow of her past, whether it's through grief, competition, fear. This episode is about what it takes to move forward. And the answer it gives us, you can't heal what you won't name. Even the title Faith, Hope, and Trick has a built-in metaphor. Obviously, Faith is both a character and a concept, what Buffy's lost and what she needs to rediscover. Hope is what starts to return by the end of the episode. And Trick, not just a villain, it's illusion, performance, and misdirection, the mask that everyone is wearing to survive. So while the plot gives us action, introductions, and mythology building, the real story is about truth, about how grief doesn't go away just because you pretend it's not there, and how healing only begins when you finally let someone else in. I did want to make a note that we've seen Cordelia as a shadow for Buffy's normal life, you know, and the representation of her. From Faith, we're going to see it as the shadow side of the Slayer for Buffy. So that's something we can peek into whenever we get into future episodes, because we're already starting to kind of see that in this episode. Fun facts for the episode, I have one. That's it. And it was that we had callbacks to all the episodes in season 2, right? I Only Have Eyes for You, School Hard Innocence, the rocket launcher, the 3 from season 1, you know. So it was fun energy that we were trying to relate back to Slayers and all of that type of stuff. But I didn't really find any other too much stuff. The other fun facts I had were the stuff that I said about 𝐒𝐴𝑧 in the beginning and stuff like that as well. So super easy today, and we can sail right into our final slays.
Final slays.
Final slays, Faith, Hope, and Trick. The F is for Faith, not final. I don't know. I was in the moment. quotes for this episode, I'm just going to go first because I only have one. Shocking, right? I like the Martha Stewart knows jack about hand cut prosciutto comment, and I also like whenever Xander's like, I don't believe she slays either, and then Oz all chimes in talking about, oh, I hear she can, but she doesn't like to. So it's kind of like three quotes from three different people, but it's all
In
within
one
the same
segment.
moment. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love everything else most of the time Faith says about hungry and horny and like slaying and all that stuff. Like, it's a very fun written episode, but that's the one that I really like chose to call
Yeah,
out to.
I really like that segment too, especially when Oz was like, he's always just so random with what he says. And he's so serious, like stiff face, that I'm just like, you can never tell like what his MO is. You know, you're like, are you trying to be funny or
I noticed when he said that too, his nails were painted, and I meant to call it out. But when he makes that statement, we get a nice shot of him with his hands like setting in like over
that's
his
like
knees.
such a Seth
And
Green
I was
thing.
like, such a Seth Green thing too. But also, I was like, look at this boy wearing nail polish. I was like, I
know,
love it. I
love
was like,
it.
we need this more in
We really
1998.
do. I really want some more like good 90s Seth Green vibe men around these days.
Mhm.
Like, we're lacking that. My quotes, I have a few, but I did like Scott's quote when he was like, you told me if I came after 8 I'd run into Buffy, because I'm just like, that's the thing you're not supposed to say, but okay.
Makes it funny.
And then I really loved Willow when she's like, that's not what making out sounds like unless I'm doing it wrong. It was just so Willow. And what I quoted earlier about Buffy and Faith when Buffy says, I'm just trying to get my life back. I'm not trying to go halfsies on it, because obviously that's just so relatable for that moment. And she's just struggling to really keep her head above water and get some normalcy. And here comes this bitch, like literally doing the most, you know, including having her whole job, but then like flirting with the guy that she's been flirting with in the hallway and like all these things, and then like eating her whole ass dinner off her dinner plate. So yeah, that was an appreciated moment for me, because I just felt so bad for Buffy again. I'm just like, after all the shit that you've already dealt with, you already came home and did not have the most warm welcome, and now you're having to just reach for any normalcy, and now this girl comes in and she's like, no, I'm you.
Exactly.
So those are my quotes.
I like your quotes. That was funny. Who are you giving Shannon and Slayer to?
I think it was a dual effort between Buffy, obviously, and Faith, but my final verdict did go to Faith, just because she ended up being like the one who actually had to really confront her demons internally, literally, figuratively, all the things. And she was obviously the one who took that big old, what did you call it? Like a big old wooden beam or column or something, and gave us the final slay of the episode. So obviously Faith more so than Buffy, but they did make a good team.
Yeah, mine mirrors yours exactly. That's how we have to choose it. Like, obviously, I wrote for Faith, just overcoming her fears and defeating Kakistos and getting her fresh start. And as a follow-up, giving it to Buffy, because Buffy, as per usual, helped out Faith get her life back on a more positive path, and gave her some strength and support to defeat her challenges and stop running. I really like how Buffy coaches Faith essentially in this episode. It's really beautiful. And of course, in hindsight, without realizing it, Faith does the same for Buffy in the end, when, you know, the final acts of courage to talk and get over the stuff that she needs to. So they work really in symbiosis together, and I really like that whole energy. Weekly wigs. What was wigging you out this episode?
Kakistos is my main weekly wigs, just because, like, you described him perfectly earlier by calling him a pig man or whatever. He's like just so conflicting for a vampire. And yeah, the whole thing, his whole energy, his whole appearance with his one fucked up eye and his pig feet, like the whole thing is just way too much for me. He gets the weekly wigs.
Mine was Xander commenting on Faith's nudity in front of Cordelia. I was like, boy, shut up. Like, once again, Xander made it into my Wiggins, but that was the only thing that could really wig me out. You know what I mean? Everybody else dealt with their shit and did everything.
Except for Xander, as usual.
I had to take out, immaturity. Gotta love it. All right, that Slade moment. What was yours?
Mine has to go to Giles, honestly, and it's like a deeper dive on things than usual, but I think his calculated scheme behind getting Buffy to really open up and push that past that issue is my Slade moment of this episode, just because it's so calculated, it's so thought out, and like I said, it's the perfect character to have done it to Buffy, because he's so organically trustworthy, that if you walk into the library and he has some shit out, you're going to assume he's doing some weird shit, like a binding spell or like a spell of some sort or something. So you'd never think to question it. So when you really pay attention to all the components that had to go into thinking this out from start to finish, it was just beautifully orchestrated. And yeah, I mean, Giles deserves to slay every once in a while. So I think this is his slayed moment.
Mine was Faith's grand entrance. That's basically what I wrote. Because just the way she came into the episode and slaying a vampire in front of everybody, it was just iconic. So that was slaying it to me, obviously.
Totally.
Slaying it with Juliet Landau.
Yeah.
Slayer at predictions. Obviously, I still have the next episode to go over with you. But while we were talking, I put one more in there because I was like, oh, wait, this would make complete sense. At the close, whenever Giles is telling Buffy about Faith sticking around, he's like, I'm to look after the two of you until a new watcher arrives for Faith. So we can expect that a new watcher is coming to Sunnydale. This will be the first time that we've seen a second watcher. Do you have any mindset around
I didn't even think about that.
I know. I didn't either. I was like, damn, that's such important. And you get lost in it in the scene and stuff, but do you think it's going to be like a male or a female? What do you think they're going to act like? Do you think they're going to be similar to Giles?
So here's what I'll say, because I did notice, I made a mental note, and I think actually a physical one in my notes somewhere, that Faith's watcher was a female. And I think you go through like half the episode without them actually speaking on her gender. So when they're just speaking on the term watcher, I, in my mind, saw someone like Giles or like a male. So when they clarified that her watcher was a female, I was like, oh shit, that's interesting. And then I started immediately going on the spiral where I was like, well, it sucks that she's dead, because what if she wasn't? And that could be Giles's new love interest. So now I hope, and maybe it's not as much of a prediction as a wishful thinking, but I hope she's female, and I hope that maybe it can be a love interest for Giles.
All right, great. What episode do you think the Watcher will appear in?
Either the next episode or maybe the following. So in the next maybe 2 episodes, hopefully.
All right, I guess we'll see.
Maybe I'm impatient now because I want it to be Giles's wife.
All right, great. Our next episode 4, is entitled Beauty and the Beasts.
It's the Watcher.
All right, I'll let you keep it at that.
Okay, cool.
Obviously, remember Angel though has come back, so we're gonna obviously possibly be dealing with some stuff about that.
Damn it! I got too excited about the Watcher. Well, both can happen. Both can happen.
Hey, Beauty and the Beasts.
You never know. Both components are at large. So.
We'll see. All right, everyone. Thanks so much for tuning into this episode and listening to our discussion on it. I'm curious what you guys' first impression of Faith was and what you still think of her to this day. Write in and let me know. Also, I'm curious if you guys were a Slayer. Would you rather be a solo Slayer or team up with Buffy like Faith intended to do? Also, with the fact that Angel is revealed at the end of the episode, what did you guys think about initially whenever he was flashed onto our screen naked, by the way? So exciting that he was naked on our screen. Got to see his booty crack, like all the things. But what did you think about Angel being back and all of this and what this means for Buffy? Let us know. We'll be back next week to discuss Beauty and the Beast. And until then, we'll catch you back here in Sunnydale next round.
You got a problem?
I'm 5x5 here, B, living entirely large. Actually wondering about your problem.
Well, I may not sleep in the nude and wrestle alligators.
Maybe it's time you started, because obviously something in your bottle needs uncorking. What is it, the angel thing?
What do you know about Angel?
Just what your friends tell me. Big love, big loss, you ought to deal and move on, but you're not.
I got an idea. How about from now on, we don't hear from you on Angel or anything else in my life, which, by the way, is my life.
What do you get so strung out for, B?
Why are your lips still moving, F?
Did I just hear a threat?
Would you like to?
Wow. You think you can take me?
Yeah. I just hope they can't.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Buffy on Revamped. Remember to join us next week for a new episode release as we continue our journey through Sunnydale. We also would like to hear from you, so share your thoughts. Discuss with us your perspectives on this or previous week's episodes by following us on Instagram and sending us a DM at revamped_rewatch podcast.
Or by emailing us at revampedrewatchpod@gmail.com. Additionally, we will be choosing one of your messages to shout out in an upcoming episode release. And if you happen to love abandoned places but prefer them vampire-free, check out Echoes of Elsewhere, an urban exploration podcast, where I interview urban explorers about the eerie spaces they uncover, anything from haunted schools, forgotten mansions, and tunnels that probably don't lead to the Hellmouth. From history to mysteries, tips and tricks of the trade, I dive into all things urbex. Subscribe and listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Until next time, the Earth is definitely doomed. This podcast is dedicated to the Buffyverse, to its fans, and my sister, Tiffany Dawn Pearson.